shootout down at the thing, and the age. There was a shootout down at the thing, and the age.
Oh, how is that for boomerisms? Holy shit, that was off to a great start, wasn't it? Wow, sometimes I wish you could just go back and do it all over again. Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm Legal Vices, and that's what we call a shit show. Wow, all right. Phew. That's what happens when you try to do shit at an absolutely frightening pace. Good heavens, I just got in the door a few minutes ago and had to get everything set up and tried to pull everything off in an amazing manner. But obviously, as you could see, nothing worked. Everything went completely wrong there. Holy crap. All right. Well, with that behind us, you know, they say, like, you know, on radio, or if you're a musical performer and whatnot, and you make a mistake, you should just keep going and pretend nothing ever happened, because a lot of people wouldn't notice it. Yeah, there was no way to get around that one. That was just a disaster. So, here we are. And we got a lot of stuff to get. Wow, we've got usually takes us a while to get 71 people. And a lot of my stuff hasn't even been set up properly yet. So I'm just going to be talking while reading and doing other things at the same time here to get us completely ready to go. But obviously today we're going to be talking about more ALEC Baldwin garbage. Just more fuckwittery from him. He can't stop doing interviews. And also a couple of weeks ago, the FBI report came out. We're going to talk about that. We're going to go through exactly what the FBI looked at and what their findings were. And we've got the snoring bulldogs here with us because I didn't have time to kick them out of the room. So again, the bulldog warning: any sniffing, snoring, heavy breathing you hear, it's coming from the bulldogs and not me. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So we've got we don't have a lot of things to cover, but there's some detail. The FBI report, of course, is quite detailed. We'll be talking about a lot of interesting things with that. And then the fact that he just can't stop doing the interviews. We'll go over his most recent interview with CNN, where he says some things that are really stupid, even by ALEC Baldwin standards. And I know that's hard to imagine, but that's the way of it. I mean, just the guy's doing himself zero favors at all. I mean, just nothing he is doing is helping his cause. And we're just gonna look a little more into that. So as we start off this show, I just want to give my usual shout out to my mods. We see Rose is here, and Steph, you're here. Welcome back. You know, you texted me and said you're in your car on your cell phone. So hey, that's an extra special duty you're doing there. Take it easy. Chat, it's always great to have you here. We've got some Massachusetts checking in, Tennessee, Atlanta, ATL in the house, more Tennessee. What we got going? I don't even have my right glasses on. So if I'm looking up, it's because I'm looking down into the bifocal part of it to see close. Annapolis, cool. Where's my non-US contingent? It looks like we're all stuck in the States today. We have where's our usual Australia? We usually get some Norway in. We usually get some South Africa in, some Ireland. Where's all the international folks? There's some Texas, North Carolina, Kanakistan, Canada, Canadia's checking in. Canadian, Kanakistan, Arizona, Texas. Texas is almost a foreign country. Hey, Kevin from Mumbai. We've got the India contingent, or the contingent that is in India, I suppose I should say. All right. Well, we have our 100 people. Like, as you know, that regularly frequent my channel, we like to start into the meat and bones when we get around 100 and about 100 concurrent viewers. Well, right now we've got 103 concurrent viewers and 70 likes. So I can say that half of you haven't done your job. If you're here, reach down there, hit that like button. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, watch it for a bit, or just subscribe right now. I won't stop you from subscribing right now, but if you're uncertain, watch it for a little bit. See if this is for you. See, this is what we talk about. We do it every day, except for the weekends. And hit that subscribe button if you like it. And if you have subscribed, again, please double check, as always, to make sure you're still subscribed so that we can deal with YouTube and their random unsubscribing of people. the notification's important, and come back later after the show and just drop off a comment to fulfill their engagement requirements. We are doing great. We're doing well. It's coming up. It's Friday, and a week from today is our third F-It Friday. We won't say the F word too much yet because that'll get our monetization taken down. But next Friday will be a joint F-It Friday and Unexplained with Fair and Balanced. And again, for those of you that know what they're all about, come and join the shenanigans again next week. And for those of you that don't know what the F-It Friday is about, we just talk about everything. We're gonna be talking about silly stuff, but next week is focused on the unexplained. So we're gonna, in addition to the regular silliness, we're gonna be looking at ghost stuff, conspiracies, Bigfoot things, paranormal, anything, unexplained mysteries. I've got quite a few interesting things lined up. But while we're doing that, it's going to be $100 shots. Those of you that are in the grift, that are down with the grift, F-It Friday is just essentially is a fun night where I just grift. So I grift hard. It's just a grift stream. So I don't have to grift so hard during the rest of the month. Just do one night a month, $100 shots. You see how liquored up I can get, and I see how long I can put up with it till I die. Got the ambulance on speed dial. We'll be ready. So that's next Friday. Next Friday for the F-It Friday. Come and join me for that. Be ready. It's fun. And we have the added advantage of having Fair and Balanced with us that day. So great. With that out of the way, I think we should jump right into it. So again, like, subscribe, notify, come back later for a comment. And if there's a question you have that you definitely want answered, Super Chat's the best way to do that. Also, if there's a comment you want to get out, if you want me to read something, if you want me to say something, respond to something, Super Chat's the way to go. It's not required. There's no minimum dollar for a comment requirement. It just assures I see it because it comes up in bright, pretty colors, and I notice it. And as a matter of fact, we have one already. Flux, $5 Super Chat. Hey, hi, Pants Are Prison. As always, it's summer. It's No Pants Friday. And no pants Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday as well. Pants are prison. I'm home. Just the dogs have seen all there is to see, so I got nothing to hide. All right, got that Super Chat out of the way. Thanks for starting us off there. All righty. Now, the first thing we're going to do, we're going to be looking at the FBI report. It's fairly involved. There's a lot of stuff that's not necessary to talk about, but we'll look at it anyway. Now, for those of you that aren't caught entirely up on this, let me bring this up real quick here. Boom. Oh, that's not you. That's Chris Cuomo. We don't need Chris Cuomo. He's an idiot. It's in the windows. There we go. And we'll just bump this back here a little bit for now. Now, for those of you that aren't entirely caught up, ALEC Baldwin was on the set of a movie called Rust, a Western. He magically shot the cinematographer, killed her. The bullet went through her and into one of the directors, into his shoulder. He killed a woman and injured another person. And there is so much backstory and BS involved in all of the parties that have been interviewed that you really need to go back and watch the interrogation videos we reviewed. But basically, we have a lot of incompetence, a lot of inexperienced people ignoring safety protocols, ignoring industry standards, and basically just dicking around, which results in ALEC Baldwin ending up somehow on the set of a movie with a pistol, with a revolver and a loaded bullet. And he is dicking around with this gun that has a loaded bullet in it. And he knows the gun is loaded with what he thought were blanks or dummies, which actually, that's part of the argument. He should have known, because he should have inspected it, but he turned down training for the movie. He turned down other courses, and he's dicking around with it, pointing it, trying to cross draw and point it at the camera to get an angle and whatnot. And somehow the trigger goes off and kills a woman and goes into the shoulder of the director. And immediately, ALEC Baldwin goes on TV and saying that he would never pull the trigger. He would never do something like that. He would never point a gun at anyone. And he would certainly never pull a trigger. The gun just magically went off, and he wasn't even pointing it at her, but it shot her. Which, I mean, as we just all know, physics. If a gun's pointing, the bullet's going to go in a straight line with like a small drop for gravity. But yeah, it's not the Matrix here. It's not that. What was that movie with Morgan Freeman where you could like bend? It was like Morgan Freeman. Was Angelina Jolie in it too? Where you could like bend the course of bullets with your mind. I guess he thought that he was in that reality. Yeah, Givner said Runkle did a good video on dummies yesterday. Yeah, I sent an invite to Runkle just a few minutes ago. It's a last minute thing, so the chances of him being here are relatively small or none. But I did invite Ian on here, send him a link. Don't hold your breath, but yeah, he has been invited just because I know it's fresh in his mind as well. And we've done this whole series. So he maintains on TV that he never pulled the trigger. That somebody else did it. It's everybody else's fault. It's the Amber Heard syndrome. Everything it's somebody else. Alec Baldwin did nothing wrong. He says he knows nothing about guns, but then also during his police interrogation, he said he knows a lot about guns because he's worked with them for 40 years. He doesn't know anything about bullets. He doesn't know how to check a gun, but then he says he knows how to identify and tell the difference between live rounds, dummy rounds, blank rounds, etc. So he's talking out of both sides of his mouth, and he's doing this thing on national TV. And of course, during his police interview, which was literally, I think, the first YouTube video I ever did, was Alec Baldwin's police interrogation. He doesn't have a lawyer. He just, I mean, that boggles my mind, but he didn't have a lawyer then. He hasn't had a lawyer with him on any of these interviews he's done, and he's still talking out of his ass. Well, that continues today because the FBI examined that gun. They examined the bullets. They examined a lot of things, and they had some very, very interesting findings. And did any of those interesting findings stop Alec Baldwin from continuing to flap his gums? No, it just got worse. Since the FBI report, it was just released. The date of the report is May 3rd, but it was just released a couple of weeks ago to the public. And since then, he's done 2 interviews that I'm aware of. We did one with Chris Cuomo that you just saw a bit when I brought up the wrong screen. At the end of today, if we finish early, then we can go back and watch that Chris Cuomo interview again, because that was just nearly insane. I mean, those of you that saw it last time we did the Alec Baldwin thing, you all were surprised by just how insane that interview sounded. But we might do that at the end again, just to look at it to fill some time. But the plan right now is to look at this FBI laboratory report and then review his interview he did with CNN the other day. Absolute insanity. So with that in mind, again, the super chat option is there. If you want to ask me a question, if you want to say, oh, see, there we go. Mortimer Duke reading my mind. Mortimer Duke, thank you so much for the super chat. Problem is, we're dealing with 2 of the world's least trustworthy parties, Baldwin and the FBI. Well, I think when it comes to firearm investigation, the FBI probably knows what they're talking about, and it certainly looks like here. But other parts of the FBI, perhaps not. That, I mean, any FBI agent that's watching or listening, I think you're absolutely great and completely flawless, and you would never do anything wrong, and you're a completely competent, high-quality governmental organization. But there are those that would say that perhaps they're not the most trustworthy in certain other aspects. But I think in this, they're pretty good. Let's look at their ballistics and firearm investigation report. And again, Mortimer, thank you so much for that. That is deeply appreciated. Alrighty then. Boom. I'm going to minimize me and maximize this. The FBI laboratory report for this idiot. All right. The victim, Helena Hutchins, discipline, explosive chemistry, which is bullets. It's got gunpowder in it. I've had about half a bottle of wine this evening, and I've got a serious amount of drinking to do. So tonight, in the official Johnny Depp Mega Pint Legal Vices Pimp Cup, is just nice, cold spring water. What we've got here, this is a list of the evidence that the FBI has gone through, the various cartridges, and where they're from the top of the cart. Remember, if you remember, there was a cart that was just sort of littered with rounds of ammunition on it. There, from the bandoliers, the holster that Baldwin had, and a bunch of other items. And there's really nothing on that first couple of pages. Now, this is the evidence. This is some more of the evidence they looked at. Oh, a Spooky Spoon. Thank you so much for the green shocked incredible sticker. That is absolutely amazing and much, much appreciated. And it's Friday night, so I have a bridge, like a 4.5 kilometer long bridge. If you saw the movie Black Panther, there was a part that was filmed here in Busan, Korea, and there was a big bridge chase across a big lighted bridge. That big lighted bridge from Black Panther is right outside my window. And starting about this time, it's 10:23 on a Friday night. All the supercars just start racing back and forth across the bridge. So, all right, thanks for that super sticker. And any car noise you hear, it's the supercars on the bridge, just trying to find one place in town where they can go really fast for about 30 seconds. Spooky Spoon got us another sticker. GG, it looks like an old Nintendo controller. Cool. All right. Well, let's look at the bullets and the gun. That's the two main things we're looking at here. Item 1, keep these numbers in mind. Item 1 is the bullet from Joel Souza, the director's shoulder. How did it get in Joel Souza's shoulder? It went through Helena Hutchinson's body crosswise in one armpit and out the other and into Joel's shoulder. They took the bullet from his shoulder. And then the revolver that shot the bullet. And item 3, I didn't highlight. Item 3, I believe it's item 3 was the cartridge that came from the gun. So you have the bullet, the cartridge, and the gun are the three main things we're looking at here tonight. But they looked at a bunch of other cartridges from various other players, from various locations. Lots of stuff they looked at. And the results of this, they were testing the gun is what they were basically testing here to see how it can fire, because ALEC Baldwin swore to God up and down that he never pulled the trigger. The gun just magically went off. The ghost shot the gun. And Crystal, thank you so much. As with most government agencies, incompetence fails upward. The ones at the bottom doing the work and making the reports know more than the higher ups. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's every company, every organization. Yeah. Boots on the ground people know a hell of a lot more about what's going on than the higher ups. So let's see what these boots on the ground investigators had to say. The results of the firearm examinations are included in this report. Item 2 is a Colt 45. It's a 45 Colt, long Colt, caliber F. It's a Pieta single action revolver. And it's a model 1873 SA California serial number we don't care about, which functioned normally. I mean, they just right out of the gate, which functioned normally when tested in the laboratory. And what this document goes through is all of the tests that they performed. So they say it tested normally in the laboratory. Item 2 contained a 1/4 cock and 1/2 cock manuals. Now, I'm giggling like a schoolgirl because I know what the chat is thinking, not because I'm giggling like a schoolgirl. You're just making me that way. So basically, for those of you that don't know about guns and things, the 1/4 cock, 1/2 cock, what that is if you pull back the hammer, that's the little part that sticks up. If you pull that back all the way on the pew, that's a full cock. If you pull it 1/4 of the way and a halfway, it'll stop. There's like a 1/4 cock and a 1/2 cock and a full cock. Chat, you disappoint me. So those are safety features. And what those safety features are is which are intended to prevent slippage of the hammer during cocking and the release of the hammer by a normal pull of the trigger. So essentially, with this single action revolver, you have to pull the hammer all the way back before it will fire. If you pull it a quarter of the way back and it slips, it will stick on the internal safety mechanism. If you pull it back halfway and it slips out of your finger or you let it go, it will catch on the half cock safety mechanism. And if in the quarter cock and the half cock position, even if you pull the trigger, it will not fire. The hammer will not drop and it will not hit the primer on the bullet and it will not fire. And with these old guns, if you pulled it all the way back in a full cock and you decided you didn't want to shoot it, you would actually have to pull the trigger and slowly lower the hammer back down. So I hope that made some sense to people. I hope that made some sense. On the assumption it did make some sense, let's continue forward. Additionally, item 2 has a hammer with a fixed firing pin and does not contain any internal safety mechanism to prevent the fire pin from striking the primer of the chambered cartridge, such as a transfer bar or hammer block. Looking around on my desk, what I can use to demonstrate. Okay, if you have the end of a bullet, there'll be a circle where the God, this isn't going to look good no matter how I do this. It'll have a circle where the primer is, and when the hammer goes pew like that, when the hammer goes down, there's a little bump, there's a little knob that sticks out on the bottom of that hammer, and that strikes the primer. That strikes the primer, and then it sets off the explosion, and that shoots the projectile out. Yeah, it would be a lot easier if I had an actual weapon here to describe that with. That just looked really, really bad, and I understand that, but basically you can see that the hammer has to come down and strike the primer for it to go off. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Now, getting back on track. That's so childish. For those of you that liked that description, please hit that please hit that like button. Microscopic comparisons. Item 1 is a 44-45 caliber lead flat-nosed bullet, which was fired from a barrel rifled with a right twist. Because if you know that's what makes it's like throwing a football. The barrels of rifles and pistols will have rifling. That's what it's called. You know, it'll have like a circular track, like on the James Bond movie. Like at the beginning of James Bond, they have the circle, and there's like a black line with like a spiral in it. That's what the inside of a gun barrel looks like. And so that will spin the bullet, which makes it go straighter, farther, faster, just like spiraling a football pass. That's what quarterbacks do. They do the same thing as the rifling on a handgun does. And this twists it to the right. So the bullet was fired from a barrel rifled with a right twist and was significantly damaged at the time of examination. Well, why was the bullet significantly damaged? Because it went through an entire human body crosswise. From one armpit out her other armpit and into the shoulder of another guy. So that will lead to a very, very damaged bullet. The Swan Lake lady summarizes: firing pin, hit hammer, make bullet, or shell go bang. Exactly. That's the easy way of doing it. So item 1 bullet was compared to the item 2 revolver. And what you can do is when you do a ballistics test, you can see do the scratches on the bullet match the scratching of the spiral rifling inside the barrel. And you can match them up and tell if this particular bullet was fired from this particular gun. And unfortunately, in this case, the FBI determined that the bullet compared to item 2, the revolver, was inconclusive due to the damage and lack of sufficient corresponding microscopic marks of value. So essentially, they were unable to prove conclusively that bullet came from that gun because there was too much damage to the bullet. But at the end of the day, everybody knows that bullet came from that gun, so it's not a major thing. And what are you doing over there, dog? Hey, dogs. Okay, well, item 3 is a .45 Colt caliber cartridge case. And so you have the lead bullet inside the cartridge case, and that goes in the gun. As Swan Lake Lady said, hammer hit primer, primer make gunpowder go boom, booming gunpowder make lead part fly out. So what you have left in the chamber is the spent cartridge casing. Item 3 is the spent cartridge casing. So item 3 is a .45 Colt caliber cartridge case, which bears the head stamp of Starline Brass. Starline Brass supplies all of the ammunition for the Hollywood industry, it seems, because their names are all over everything here. The item 3 cartridge case was identified as having been fired in the item 2 revolver. So these are the main two things we've got here. The main 3 things. We've got the casing, the lead part of the bullet, and the gun that fired it. So now what we have to do, the FBI has to look, because that's what ALEC Baldwin said. It was an accidental. I didn't pull the trigger. The damn thing just went off magically. Well, that's what the FBI was testing to see what would have to happen for that gun to discharge accidentally. So they did a hammer at rest test, which is just decocked. The pew part doesn't go, the hammer does not go up. It's sitting down. Now I really need like some visual aids here. Like the hammer is just a piece of metal, and it has a little tiny piece of metal that sticks out at the end of the hammer. Just like a little tiny, if you have like a flat hammer, there's like this little tiny piece of metal that sticks out here. And that rests against the primer, the part that goes bang. And it sets there against it. And what they do with the hammer at rest, decocked on a loaded chamber. They have a live round right on the end of that primer where the hammer is sitting. So with the hammer at rest on a loaded chamber, item 2 detonated a primer without pulling the trigger when the hammer was struck directly. You know, you hear about like, oh, I dropped the gun and it went off. That is kind of what happens in this case. I mean, the case where they're testing. The bullet is just sitting there. Nobody's pulling the trigger. Nobody is pulling the hammer back. Just the hammer is sitting against the shell, and you hit the back of it with a hammer or a mallet, and that drives the hammer into the primer, which makes it go bang. Very common and surprisingly easy to do. With the hammer at rest on a loaded chamber, item 2 detonated a primer without a pull of the trigger when the hammer was struck directly. With a revolver of this design, when the hammer is at rest on a loaded chamber, the firing pin sits directly on the primer of the cartridge. When force is applied to the hammer, such as striking or dropping, it can fire the cartridge without a pull of the trigger. This is consistent with normal operation for a single action revolver of this design. Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. It's common with a revolver of this design, because this specifically doesn't have a hammer block. So hammer at 1/4 and 1 cock positions, 1/4 and 1/2 cock positions. Let me see if we can make this a little bigger. Is that too big? Is that too big? Is the cocking action too big there? Yeah, I guess those are our 2 choices. With the hammer in the 1/4 and 1/2 cock positions, item 2, the revolver, could not be made to fire without a pull of a trigger. When enough pressure was applied to the trigger, each of these safety positions were overcome and the hammer fell. This is consistent with normal operation for a single action revolver of this design. So just normal action. I mean, you have to really pull on those things to get over the half cock, the quarter cock and half cock safety mechanism. It's not just something that happens lightly and naturally. It requires a great deal of force. Yes, Paul Farrell or Farrell, thank you so much for the super chat. It says Starline doesn't produce ammunition. No, they don't produce the ammunition. They produce the casings, but components for loading ammunition, primarily brass cases. So everything with a Starline head stamp was made by someone else. Yeah, that's what they provide, the brass cartridges that someone else would load, another company or another person would load with whatever size load they want, or if you want a live ammunition, then load it with live ammunition. With a full powder charge and a lead bullet at the end of it. So yeah, the Starline, they produce the casing, the cartridge that was remaining after the gun went boom and the lead went flying. Thank you very much, Paul. So with the hammer in the 1/4 cock position, pressure was applied to the trigger and the hammer fell. However, the firing pin did not have enough force to detonate the primer and resulted in light firing pin strikes. Very, very, very important for not only what ALEC Baldwin said before, but the dumb shit he was saying after this FBI report was released. Because he was saying that he pulled it back a little ways and it slipped, which they've just said it does. If you pull it back more than 1/4 cock, which I mean, you're talking maybe 1/8 of an inch, like that much. If you pull it back that much and let it go, it's not going to discharge. First of all, it's not going to fall. Even if it does go to the quarter position and you manage to pull the trigger hard enough to get the hammer to fall, it's not going to fall far enough to set the primer off. In the quarter cock position, which, if you believe ALEC Baldwin, is just about where he said it may have been. But they said they overcame the internal safety mechanism, but it's still, the hammer did not fall hard enough or far enough to detonate the primer. What about the half cock position? Same. When the hammer in the half cock position, with the hammer in the half cock position, pressure was applied to the trigger and the hammer fell. However, the cylinder could not be properly aligned to the bore. The firing pin struck the outer head stamp area and did not detonate the primer. Now, when you, okay, but those of you that are familiar with revolvers know what's going on. But for those of you that don't, you'll notice the revolver, the cylinder on the revolver will have 5 or 6 holes where the bullets go. And it doesn't stay there. So when the hammer is down and you pull the hammer back, it doesn't just go in that way. As you pull the hammer back, the cylinder rotates. So if there's no bullet at the top where the hammer is, and you pull the hammer back, as you pull the hammer back, the cylinder will rotate so that there is now a bullet under the hammer. So you go bang, that detonates, and then you pull back to shoot again, and it rotates to the next chamber. And that every time you pull it back, the cylinder will turn the distance of 1 bullet. So what they're saying here is that if you pull it back halfway, if you pull the hammer back halfway, it will rotate halfway to the next cylinder. And then if the hammer falls, it hits the metal part of the cylinder between the 2 bullets. I hope that makes sense. So if he pulls it back less than 1/4 of the way, it's just going to fall back and not detonate because there's not enough force. If he pulls it back 1/4 of the way, the hammer, it's going to stop. Wow, that was nice. Don't hit your microphone. If he pulls it back 1/4 of the way or more and lets it go, it's going to stop on the quarter cock safety mechanism. And even if you do manage to pull the trigger and discharge it from the quarter cock position, it's still not going to fall hard enough with enough force to detonate the primer. And if you pull it back halfway, same thing. It's not going to go because of this internal safety mechanism. But if you do manage to do it, it's going to hit halfway between the 2 bullets. So essentially, there is no way for this weapon to accidentally fire unless you are pounding directly on the hammer in an uncocked position, rather forcefully with another object, such as a hammer, a mallet, the floor, something like that. So with okay, we did the hammer in the half cock position. Hammer at full cock position. That's where you just crank it all the way back. The cylinder rotates far enough to put another round directly in front of the hammer and the firing pin. With the hammer in the full cock position, item 2 could not be made to fire without a pull of the trigger. So you can shake it, you can hit it, you can pound it when it's fully cocked, but it's not. They could not make it fire unless you pulled the trigger. While the working internal components were intact and functional. Those of you that saw it last time, you'll notice when we briefly addressed this, the FBI tested this so many times that they actually broke the internal mechanisms of the gun. That's how many times they tried to get this thing to fire accidentally, and it wouldn't do it. So during this testing, portions of the trigger sear and cylinder stop fractured while the hammer was struck. The fracture of these internal components allowed the hammer to fall and the firing pin and detonated the primer. This was the only successful discharge during this testing. The only successful discharge during this testing was after they had tested it so many times that it broke. And this was attributed to the fracture of internal components, not the failure of the firearm or its safety mechanisms. So the takeaway from this page is Alec Baldwin is full of shit. Alec Baldwin is a liar when he says that he didn't pull the trigger because the FBI showed that it could not fire without pulling the trigger. Well, I mean, without pulling the hammer, unless you pounded on the back of it when it was in an uncocked position. Alec Baldwin would never point the gun at somebody, but clearly he did because it hit 2 people. That was his first story. And then it was like, oh, he pulled it back. He pulled the hammer back a little ways. He pulled it back a little bit. And it either, it slipped out of his finger or whatever, or, but they're showing that they just showed that could not happen. That was not an option for the various reasons we just described. And I want to bring up one video here. Aggie, what are you doing? Huh? Got the dog that's licking the floor for some reason. It's really annoying. Just here's behind me. So, all right, I want to bring up this video that demonstrates this a little bit more clearly. It's kind of a long video, but it's a weapons expert explaining why this couldn't happen in a real life example. So while I'm bringing this up, we've got 304 people here currently, so that's great. Hit that like button. Half of you haven't done it. You can hit it in the time it's going to take me to bring up this next screen. So I would deeply appreciate it if you would do that. Yep. This video is titled Proof that Alec Baldwin lied, a gun demonstration. All righty. This fine gentleman here is going to walk us through essentially what the FBI did in their test. And this came out well before the results of the FBI test were made public. Because anybody familiar with firearms knew that Alec Baldwin was full of shit from the first time he opened his mouth after the shooting happened. Kitty Cat, thank you so much for the super chat. Yes, you fed them pups. Yeah, we fed the pups. The pups demand food. They're all taken care of. So let's see what this fine gentleman has to say about Alec Baldwin being full of crap. And here you can see a lot better the stuff that I was trying to demonstrate with my finger and cocks and everything. So, so he's got the goods on Alec Baldwin here. And we will give him a play. It's 8 minutes long. You got a little bit of an intro.
I'm here to explain exactly why Alec Baldwin's words do not ring true about what happened on the set of his movie that resulted in the death of his director of photography. But first, before we get into that, we have a gun giveaway going on right now. It's absolutely free. All you got to do to get involved is click in the link in the description down below. It'll tell you which brand new gun you could win.
Woo! Guns.
All right, let's talk about what Alec Baldwin said in his interview with George Stephanopoulos. I have here a Colt Model P. This is commonly called the Single Action Army. This is the real gun that was used on the set of Rust. Not that particular gun, but they used a Pieta replica. And Pieta bills itself as the company that makes a replica so true, all of the original parts from this original Colt pistol will fit in and are interchangeable with that Pieta. So Alec Baldwin.
So this is the real deal here. This is the exact model that Alec Baldwin's gun was modeled after.
Saying that he was pointing the gun. He said he wasn't pointing it at the director of photography, which is patently false, because if he wasn't pointing it at her, the bullet would not have hit her.
I mean, that's the first bullshit comment that Alec Baldwin, I would never point it at. I didn't point it at anyone. Well, yeah, you did. You clearly did. God.
Flies in a straight line. When it comes out the muzzle, flies in an absolutely straight line. It drops a little bit over distance. That's it. So he had to be pointing it at her. And then he said, I pulled the hammer back and I said, how does this look? And I pulled the hammer back a little more and I said, how does this look? And pulled the hammer back a little more and I said, how does this look? And then I let go of the hammer and bang. Well, that is an absolute lie. Well, we can't say absolute lie. That is not the truth. Now, before we do anything with this gun, I want to let you know that we have loaded it with cartridge cases equipped only with primers. That's it. No powder, no projectile, just the primer. So if I can make this gun go off, if I can make this gun fire, you'll hear a pop like a big cap gun and maybe see a little flash come out the muzzle. That's it. Everybody in this studio was given the opportunity to check this firearm and recheck it. We put it together so it is perfectly safe. No one can get injured. So I'm going to talk about what Alec Baldwin said and what is the truth about the Colt Model P, the Single Action Army, that he was using on the set of that movie. First of all, Alec Baldwin said,
guiding me through how she wants me to hold the gun for this angle. And I draw the gun out and I find a mark, I draw the gun out, I find a cut. And what's really urgent is the gun wasn't meant to be fired in that angle.
So if you're shooting directly into the camera lens, you're not aiming.
I'm not shooting into the camera lens. I'm shooting just off.
Just off.
Right, in her direction.
Bullet flies in the straight line from the muzzle wherever it was pointing. Doesn't curve, you know, unless you're watching the Zapruder film. And then bullet curve, but never mind that. Bullet flies in a straight line from the muzzle to its target, might drop a little bit over distance. That's it. So he had to have the gun pointed at her. Next thing he said was that he pulled the hammer back a little bit and said,
now here's where he gets into the quarter cock, half cock, and full cock positions.
How's this look? Pulled the hammer back a little bit more and said, how's this look? You can see it on his video, see it on his interview. Pulled the hammer back a little more. How does this look? Pulled the hammer back a little more. Then I let go of the hammer and pow, the gun went off. I never pulled the trigger. He said he never pulled the trigger.
Kept doing this new. So then I said to her, now in this scene, I'm going to cock the gun. And I said, do you want to see that? And she said, yes. So I take the gun and I start to cock the gun. I'm not going to pull the trigger. I said, do you see that? She goes, well, just cheat it down and tilt it down a little bit like that. And I cock the gun. I go, can you see that? Can you see that? Can you see that? And she says, and then I let go of the hammer of the gun and the gun goes off.
Let's see why that is not true. All right. So gun is actually in the worst possible position. The hammer is down now, resting.
See, this is what this is the hammer test when the FBI smashed the back of the hammer with a mallet while the firing pin was resting on the primer.
On the primer of one of these cartridges. So he said he pulled the hammer back a little bit and said, how does this look? Let's see what happens when we pull the hammer back an eighth of an inch. An eighth of an inch. Now, the entire system is locked.
That's the quarter cock position. Did you see how little that went? That went back an eighth of an inch, just a microscopically tiny little amount, and it locks in place. Look again how small of a motion that is with his hand.
An eighth of an inch. Now, the entire system is said, how does this look? Let's see what happens when we pull the hammer back an eighth of an inch.
That much. It's locked in place.
An eighth of an inch. Now, the entire system is locked. This hammer can't move forward. I can pull the trigger all day long and nothing happens. I'm pulling the trigger pretty hard right here. Pretty stout pull, nothing happens. So he said he pulled the hammer back and he let it go. There's a notch on the bottom of the hammer in which the hammer spring fits. And once that notch is engaged with that hammer spring, the hammer cannot go forward and hit the primer. It simply cannot. It's physically stopped. So we pull it back and we let it go, and nothing can happen.
This is what happens when people try to bullshit people that know what they're talking about. ALEC Baldwin is just saying, I just pulled it back a little bit more, and then it slipped off, and then it went off. Here we have an actual demonstration, a physical demonstration that cannot possibly happen as long as the gun is in working order, which is what the FBI said. The only time they got it to fire accidentally was after they had broken the gun from testing it too much.
Then he said, I pull it back a little bit more, pull it back a little bit more. Let's pull it back a little bit more.
That's the half cock.
There's another notch on the bottom of the hammer.
And so that is where if it suddenly went down in this position, it would come down between the two chambers
in which the hammer spring rests. The hammer spring is now locked into that second notch. That notch allows this system to load and unload the gun. Now we're at what's called half cock, and this will turn 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's a 6 shooter. It will turn. That's how we load and unload the gun, through the loading gate on the other side. Even from here, pulling the hammer back and letting it go, it cannot get past that notch.
So ALEC Baldwin is a fucking liar, is what he's saying. This is it. You watched him flip that thing back. It won't happen from a quarter cock. It won't happen from a half cock. It won't even happen from a full cock.
It cannot get past that notch unless you pull the trigger once you relieve the pressure from the hammer spring by pulling the hammer back a little, pulling the trigger, and we can drop it back to the safety position. It cannot move from that position unless you pull the trigger. ALEC Baldwin said he never pulled the trigger. Physically, and the way this gun works mechanically, that can't be true. So now let's say, as he said in his video, I pulled it back a little bit more, I pulled it back a little bit more, I pulled it back a little bit more, and I let go of the hammer and it went off. Now we've pulled it all the way back to the full cock position, the ready to fire position. And without my finger on the trigger, nothing will happen. Even if we pull it back and let it go all day long. With no finger on the trigger, the gun cannot be made to fire. But what happens if he puts his finger on the trigger and he's holding the hammer back, and now he lets go? There. Bang.
Bang. That was pretty graphic, wasn't it? That's pretty much it. The only way that gun could have gone off is if he pulled the trigger all the way back and went pow and pulled the trigger.
The gun goes off. What ALEC Baldwin was telling people is that he never had his finger on the trigger.
Bullshit.
What I'm showing you is that he had to have had his finger on the trigger to make that gun go off. Now, there is one situation where this gun might go off where the hammer wouldn't stay back. That is if the bottom side of that hammer was so worn or damaged so as not to catch the hammer spring. And that would be a very easy test. Just give the gun, which I'm sure is locked up in evidence somewhere, to a competent gunsmith and have him look at the engagement surfaces on the bottom of the hammer.
And there we have the FBI that did the test, and there we go. My mic decided it wanted to turn itself off. Don't dick with the mic. So I can't even remember what I was going to say, but yeah, let's go back a bit and see if I can remember what I was going to say.
And have him look at...
Yes, that's what the FBI did. The FBI checked the weapon, and It engaged properly for them. It was in good working order. Everything, all of these safety functions function properly.
The engagement surfaces on the bottom of the hammer. A properly maintained, properly functioning Colt single action Army revolver will not fire. It will not be made to fire if the hammer is in proper functioning condition. We can pull it back and let it go all day long until we finally touch the trigger. That's when the gun goes off. Guns don't fire by themselves. They have to be made to fire. You have to do a specific series of things to make them fire, and that includes pressing the trigger. Alec Baldwin would know that if he'd gotten some training from the USCCA. Thank you for watching.
That's his organization. So yeah, that's the deal. That's a demonstration of this particular weapon. Yeah. Now, Brandon Lesko, thank you so much. We got another one up there. We have to get out of the way here. Boomers giving Mike's cock. Did I hear that right? Not exactly. No. No, not exactly. I want that gun also, said Brandon Lesko. I will do things with it to change the world. Well, Alec Baldwin did something with it to change the world. He killed a woman. And Brandon Lesko and not Brandon Lesko and definitely not Brandon Lesko. I saw all the stuff you pulled on Nick's stream earlier today. I remember I got my Griff stream, the fucking Friday, coming up next Friday. I expect to see some of that action too. Don't be giving it all to Nick. I'm going to hit my grift hard next week because I saw that. I saw that yesterday. All right. With that in mind, let's cancel that out and go back. These guys also did another video after the FBI report came out. Let me backtrack here. And
Rust.
This video is a video they did called FBI confirmed that Alec Baldwin lied and pulled the trigger. So let's bring up that video.
The FBI just affirmed what I said.
All right, that's what we need to do. Hang on.
Alec Baldwin lied.
Boom. All right. Share screen. And this is where they actually do we'll just see what he does and comment on it as he does it.
The FBI just affirmed what I said months ago. Alec Baldwin lied. He pulled the trigger, and now the blame game begins. Everybody seems to be suing everybody else on the set of the movie Rust. But first, before we talk about that, quick reminder. We have a gun giveaway.
They give away guns all the time here.
The set of the movie Rust. What happened was Alec Baldwin holding a firearm, cocking it and pulling the trigger. And I can say that now with impunity because a month-long FBI forensic analysis of that pistol showed that it could not be made to fire. That's very, very important. Guns don't fire by themselves.
I'm not going to pull the trigger. I said, do you see that? She goes, well, just cheat it down and tilt it down a little bit like that. And I cocked the gun. I go, can you see that? Can you see that? Can you see that? And she says, and then I let go of the hammer of the gun and the gun goes off.
They have to be made to fire. That gun could not be made to fire while it continued to be in proper working order. And it was in proper working order when they started their forensic analysis. So if you remember Alec Baldwin's statement, he was just cheating it to the side and he pulled the hammer a little and he pulled the hammer a little and he let go of the hammer. He never pulled the trigger and the gun went off. Nope. He fired the gun. He had to have fired that gun. He had to have pulled the trigger because the mechanism, the slots on the bottom of the hammer of a Colt Model P single action Army revolver will not let the hammer fall unless the trigger is pulled. The entire system is locked. This hammer can't move forward. I can pull the trigger all day long and nothing happens. I'm pulling the trigger pretty hard right here. That much we knew a long time ago, but the FBI had to do a very serious study, scientific forensic study to prove it because some very serious allegations are on the line right now. This is clearly negligent homicide. Someone was negligent.
And
Baldwin
someone
claims it's
died.
not him. And the armorer Ms. Reed, she's now suing the ammunition supplier. I don't know if that means the manufacturer or the supplier, because she claims that the ammunition supplier put live ammo in a box where there were also blanks.
Welcome to the worst day of my life.
What's your job there with them?
I'm the armor, or at least I was. I'm like the only female armorer in the game, and I just fucked up my whole entire career.
Pretty
As
much.
the armorer, shouldn't she be responsible enough to pick up the rounds, look at them and say, live ammo, blank ammo, and load the gun properly? Alec Baldwin, grown-up human being, needs to understand that.
I like that. I like Alec Baldwin. Oh, they told me it was clear. They told me it was clean. You know, it was a cold gun. I didn't check. I relied on them. I like what he just said.
Alec Baldwin, grown-up human being, needs to understand that, hey, he's holding a gun. He should have some training, and he should know the status of that firearm. That's one of these cardinal rules. Know the status of your firearm at all times. There are reports in parts of lawsuits that are coming out now that training was offered to Alec Baldwin, and he ignored the request for this cross-draw training, which would have ensured that he didn't point the gun at anyone. And
so that's one thing. If you recall, if you saw the last bit we did, that was one of the things that came out in this, was that the prop manager and her boss, they had the armorer Gutierrez Reed, they had her on a contract where she would only work as an armorer for 8 days, and she was to work in the props department for the remainder of the contract period. And her 8 days had expired before they even started filming, before they started filming this episode, before they even got to this day of the shooting. The 8 days were already up. She said, hey, my 8 days are up. And she was told no. She was specifically told by her boss's boss, by Sarah's boss, no more training. Focus on the props. You're not spending enough time on the props. She was specifically told not to conduct training. She was specifically told not to train Alec Baldwin. Alec Baldwin flatly refused the cross-draw training, said he didn't need it. So yeah, there you go. He specifically refused his training, which is industry standard, that everybody gets trained every day.
And that he didn't have his finger on the trigger.
There is an information that says he ignored orders not to do this cross draw and point the weapon at a person or have his finger on a trigger. If in fact that's true, that could be something that.
All right. Wait the fuck. Again, this is not the incident where it happened. This thing you're seeing over here on the screen is not the scene where he actually shot this woman. This was obviously before then. But look at this. Look, he never pulls the trigger.
Not to do this cross draw and point the weapon at a person or have his finger on a trigger. If in fact,
where is his fucking finger? His fucking finger is on the trigger. His finger is curled around the trigger. Right there. You can see the trigger guard. That's the trigger guard. His finger is curled inside the trigger guard. So if his finger was curled around the trigger guard on this day, you can pretty much good goddamn guarantee that it was curled around the trigger on the day he was fucking around and blasted the cinematographer. Yeah. Yeah, his finger is definitely on the trigger in this shot. And this is impractical. This is not the instant that the accident happened. This was before. But you can see that if he's rehearsing it this way, he's also rehearsing it that way at the time the shit went off. So, I mean, that's just bullshit here. That just pisses me off.
that could be something that proves a lack of due care and circumspection.
Baldwin didn't get this training, whether or not he refused or ignored.
Both.
It's going to be some legalese. everybody is now trying to put the blame on someone else. Well, the way I look at it, there's enough blame to go around. Somebody died here and a whole bunch of people had to mess up. Understand that this is just not one failure. And I don't really believe you should go back and say, well, the first failure began with X, so that's where we're going to talk about this. Nope.
Exactly. That is a point here. It's not to find some. You can have a lot of people be guilty of negligent homicide in this case. You can have a lot of people be guilty of tortious negligence in the civil claims. I mean, Baldwin's on the hook probably for the negligent homicide because he pulled the trigger. But I should say, the person that pulled the trigger is going to be the homicide thing. But for the civil trial, for the civil torts of negligence, yeah, you can have the armorer because she should have checked it. She was the one that negligently loaded the weapon. You can have the supplier guy, Dave Halls, who was supposed to be in charge of all of this, Sarah, her supervisor, who was the prop master, ALEC Baldwin for not checking it. You can have all of these people be negligent. You don't say one person is negligent, so therefore they're responsible for all of it. A lot of people can be negligent, and a lot of people can be found liable for civil damages and things like that. He makes an excellent point here.
If there was a failure at the beginning and another failure the next step and another failure the next step, every person who had a hand in that is responsible for Helena Hutchins' death. She was the director of photography there on the site, and the director also got injured. So not only did we have a death, but we had an injury as well because of a series of negligent acts of terrible safety behavior across the board. And you know what? It ends up with that firearm being in ALEC Baldwin's hand, him cocking the hammer and pulling the trigger. Those are the things you need to do to make a gun go bang. That's how you make a gun fire. And ALEC Baldwin, who hates guns, but certainly wants to use them on his movies, ignored requests to get training. He didn't check the status of the firearm he was handled. Someone said it's cold, so he looked at it and pointed it at someone.
Yep.
It's rule number one. Don't point a gun at anything you
do not want to
shoot.
destroy.
Keep your finger off the trigger until you've made a conscious decision to fire. I could happily go to movie sets and train everybody there in just a couple of hours. What's the daily rate on that? Could I get paid for going to do that? I'm sure that I could. And you know what? I wouldn't let people push me around. No matter who you are, you make sure that safety comes first.
Look
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
What happened in this situation. Someone is dead, another person is injured, and now everyone is trying to close ranks and say, it wasn't my fault. If you had a hand on that gun or a hand on that ammunition, or you were involved in any way leading up to that shooting, you bear responsibility for what happened. The biggest problem that we have with what I will call negligent, some people will call accidental discharge in the firearms community is people not being responsible, not understanding that what they're holding in their hand has the power of life and death, and just assuming that everything's going to be fine. You're holding a gun.
Yep.
When you put a gun in your hand, understand the status of that gun. Check to see if it is loaded. Make sure if there are rounds in the magazine or in the cylinder or wherever they are. Keep the gun pointed in a safe direction and keep your finger off the trigger. Now, all of these things were failed all along the line.
Yep.
And then ALEC Baldwin decided that he was going to go on TV and deny that he ever pulled the trigger. He said it over and over again. I didn't pull the trigger. I didn't pull the trigger. He's trying to control the spin and the narrative. Well, now, after months of investigation, the FBI says that gun was working just as it should, which means it cannot be made to fire without the trigger being pulled. So not only did he pull the trigger, he pointed it at someone, and he didn't check to see the status of that gun while they were rehearsing to make this shot. Understand that ALEC Baldwin was in a terrible situation. Actually, I feel a little bit sorry for him because nobody should have to go through that. But he wouldn't have had to go through that had he gotten training, had he asked questions, had he done all the things that a responsibly armed American is trained to do from age 12 on when we take our hunter safety classes.
Yep.
You know, all of us who own guns, we
Day
went through
one.
hunter education courses, typically at age 12. And those are the first things they taught us to do. Make sure we knew the status of the gun, make sure we didn't point it at anybody, make sure we knew what the backstop was, make sure we didn't have our finger on the trigger until we were ready to shoot. They gave us those 4 rules. They're simple gun safety rules. And when you hear people talk about being involved in a gun safety organization, unless that organization is providing safety training classes, it's not a gun safety organization. It is a gun control organization. So all of this is terrible. Helena Hutchins is still dead. She's going to be dead forever because of all the mistakes that stacked one upon the other, because people just didn't follow the basic safety rules that every responsibly armed American should follow at all times. This should be training taught in our schools. This should be taught to people very early on. We have millions of guns in this country. Everybody should understand the gun safety rules and everybody should follow them. Safety is all of our responsibility. Want to know the 3 biggest mistakes when carrying a handgun? Then click on the video next to me to reveal all 3 mistakes. Mistake number 2 may shock you. Click this video right next to me.
Yep, click it. All right. So that's it in a nutshell, peeps. You really can't say it better than that. The gun was in perfect working order. It did exactly what it was supposed to do. It went exactly where it should have been, and all the right things happened. It doesn't, if you pull it back and let go, it doesn't go off. If you pull it back an eighth of the way, a quarter of the way, and let it go, it doesn't go off. If you pull it back, the hammer back halfway and let it go, it doesn't go off. If you pull it back all the way and let it go, it doesn't go off. If you pull it back all the way and pull the trigger, then it goes boom and people die. The FBI tested it. It never misfired until they had tested it so many times that the gun broke. Let's get through a couple super chats here, and then we'll look at one more example of this. Then we'll get back to the FBI report. There's one thing that I think I have the right video. I'm not sure, but we'll double check here. But first, let's get through. Brendan Lesko, how dare you accuse me of cheating on you? Well, we'll see what happens next Friday, won't we? We'll see what happens next Friday. Until then, the jury's out. Kyle Cowden, carry with the hammer on an empty chamber as common, but a 1/4 cock is the safety for carrying the weapon. I've worked on a few. Yeah, as hopefully we'll see in the next video. And as we talked about at the beginning of the FBI report, if the hammer is just down, resting against the cylinder, and you whack the back of that hammer, it can go off. And that's why, as you said, a lot of times in a 6-shooter, there'll only be 5 bullets. There will be an empty chamber under the hammer so that if it does get hit from behind, it's not going to go off accidentally and blow your leg off, your foot off, or kill somebody if you drop it. Absolutely a good point. Thank you, Kyle, for the super chat. Deeply, deeply appreciated. Alexander Ledgerwood, thank you for your super chat. I can understand not realizing he had his finger on the trigger the whole time. I own one of these, and it's designed to rest your finger on the trigger just the way they were made back then. Yeah, well, that's true. They are designed to have your finger on the trigger. That's their purpose. But that's why you have training. You train and train and train. That's why they pound trigger discipline into your head from day one of owning or even touching a firearm. As you know, as he said, you don't put your finger on the trigger until you're sure of what you're going to kill. And you assume that whatever is in front of you is going to die. And again, Alexander Ledgerwood, thank you for the second super chat. In no way do I consider that mitigating. It's his fault. Yes, it is. He pulled the trigger. And as he said, he's a thinking, breathing adult who should know better and should take responsibility for the weapon of death that's in his hand, regardless of what someone tells him about it. Sonia Gerard, thank you so much for the super chat. How much pressure is the trigger? Could fat fingers in his bulky glove engage it so it fires when the hammer drops? Once it goes past that 1/8 of an inch, once it goes past that quarter cock, you have to, I mean, you saw in the video, the guy was pulling it and it still wasn't going off. You would have to pull that hammer pretty damn hard to override the safety mechanism. And then even if you did from the 1/8 of a cock, it wouldn't go off because there's not enough distance for it to gain enough pressure to strike and discharge the primer. So yeah, it's not looking good for Mr. Baldwin. Brandon, let's go. Thank you so much. I'm not gay. This chat is more abusive than Jeff. Why was someone talking about you fingering your hammer, cocking your hammer, fingering it, what, pulling your trigger? I show me where the bad man touched you with his finger and or cocking device. Never mind. Don't show me. I don't know. Thank you, Brandon. Deeply appreciated. Keyword deeply appreciated. MD, thank you so much for the super chat. Moving right along. These people viewed guns as props, not as weapons. Absolutely, they're toys. You know, they're toys and they mean nothing to them. Training's not important. Discipline's not important. It's frustrating because this is how stupid this is. How often does something like this happen? Like once every 30 years or once every 20 years at least? I mean, I guess it was like Brandon Lee and Jason Hexum, and they're about 20 years apart, I guess. 20, 15. Anyway, there's a fucking lot of time. That's how rare this is. How stupid and preventable this is. It's so stupid and preventable that it doesn't happen. But I think people think that because it doesn't happen, they think it can't happen. And because they think it can't happen, they get lax on the training like this. They get lax on their discipline. They get lax in their actions. They start fucking around with things. They start dicking around and things go bang and people die. Now, the one test that the guy didn't do was the one where the FBI said that they got it to go off, which is where the hammer was not pulled back at all, where the hammer was just resting on a live chamber. And if any of you know Brandon Herrera has more guns than the United States military combined. His channel's fantastic. He was on Nick's channel a while ago talking about guns and things. But he did a video, and I think this is the right video. If it's not, then it's not. But I hope it is. Let's pull it up here and listen to what he has to say about this.
Lovers, as you might notice, today's video looks a little different. That's because it's being shot on a tripod. Because frankly, DeLance did not want to be here because last time somebody filmed with one of these, it did not end well for the camera person. I'm just kidding. I paid DeLance way too much to be here. But what we are filming with today is the model 1873 Colt Single Action Army in 45 long Colt made by Pieta. This is the revolver that appears to have been used in the infamous incident involving Alec Baldwin on the set of Rust. Not this exact revolver. That one is probably in an evidence locker. Today, we're going to be putting a couple of myths to the test as far as like with this revolver. Can it be fired without pulling the trigger like Alec Baldwin claims it was? But aside from that, this is just a wonderful piece of history. So we're going to respect it for that because this was a very cool weapon before it was used by some Hollywood dipshit to shoot someone. So with that in mind, let's channel our inner Emilio Estevez from Young Guns and put this through her paces.
That is a pretty gun. That's a pretty weapon. We can skip through this here. I think
been at anyone and
I don't think this is the right one.
With a basic understanding of firearms and or physics knows that at least one of those two things is physically impossible to go off. Okay. So as you can see now, my finger is nowhere near the trigger. We have a live round aligned with the barrel and the hammer here. And I don't have a hammer. I meant to bring a hammer out here to just show that. See if you can get this to go off without fucking puncturing the side of my hand with a sharp ass hammer, but seeing if you can get this to just go off from sheer just impact force or anything alone. Now, I don't have a hammer, but the closest thing I had in my truck was an AK magazine, which for all intents and purposes, it's basically the right tool for the job, I think. All I am succeeding in doing is fucking up the knurling on a brand new, previously unfired revolver. Trying again now, still finger off the trigger, a little bit up more from the bottom to get kind of more direct impact on this hammer surface here. Nothing. Let's go ahead and inspect this cartridge. And if you look there, actually, we have a little bit of an indent on the back of the primer. I think you guys can agree that was a little bit of an extreme example. I don't think he was taking an AK mag and beating the back of his revolver with a live.
So even that's showing you how difficult this can be to get this thing to fire. It is possible to fire it the way he was doing it, and that's what the FBI did. They said they smashed the back of the hammer here with a mallet, and that discharged the weapon. And that was the only time they got it to fire, other than cocking it all the way back and pulling the trigger. And this is definitely not what happened when ALEC Baldwin was fucking around with it. So there you can see that I can't remember if he actually got it eventually to fire. Did he?
Normal circumstances.
Yeah, no.
Actual live round could be fired.
There's another video where an old cowboy guy whacks it with a mallet, but I couldn't find that one. But anyway, so you can see how difficult that is to actually get that thing to fire, even when the firing pin is sitting directly on the primer. I mean, if he would have pounded it a few more times, I think it would have gone off. But that's how difficult it is to get this thing to misfire, to accidentally discharge. The FBI had to pound it with a hammer or cock it all the way back, and bang, that's it. All of this bullshit ALEC Baldwin was talking about has been demonstrably refuted, not only by Joe Schmo, not only by the what was it, the USSAC guy or whatever the acronym is, or it just doesn't happen. Or with why can't I think of his name 5 seconds ago? Brand, but yeah. So that's those are the kind of tests that the FBI did. With that in mind, let's get back to the report. And while I'm doing that, we've reached around the halfway mark. So please hit that like button if you're still here. There's 380 of you here, 274 likes. I know there's been some turnover, so I'll say less than half of you have done your job. Get down there and hit that like button. Just smash it, smash it, smash it. Subscribe if you haven't already done so. I would deeply appreciate it. And hit that notification button. Those are the deals. And we've got, speaking of super chats, again, if there's a question you want asked, if there's something you want answered, if there's something you want to address or throw out into the ether, super chats, the way to do it. As you can see, I have a little bit of a trouble keeping up with the chat because I'm doing other things. But Bass has managed to get a super chat through. Nice fish there. Bass, thank you so much for the super chat. The irony is rust is a description of AB's brain. You're just kind of assuming he actually has one, but I would imagine if he does, I imagine if he does, it's probably pretty well rusted. Cat Madison says my 5-year-old grandson refuted Baldwin's claim with his plastic pop cap gun. Yeah. Duh. I mean, it's basic physics, mechanics, gun safety training, knowledge. That's it. Adriana says, can you see me, LV? Yes, I can see you. I can definitely see you. Okay. All righty. Yes, I can see you. So now let's bring back up the report. Those are the tests that they did. And is this what we need? Good. All right. So they have the ammunition. They check some of the ammunition. This is just a description of what the ammunition is and where each item came from that they looked at. For example, item 28 is 9 45 Colt 45 caliber cartridges, which bear the head stamp of Starline, Black Hills, and cellular and pellet ammunition. 2 cartridges were subdivided from an. This is just a factual description of where things came from. Oops, we skipped something. Accidental discharge. This is their description of the accidental discharge. An accidental discharge is conducted in all modes of fire for a particular firearm, utilizing a primed cartridge case or shot shell case. The firearm is struck with a rawhide or similar styled mallet on its 6 planes: front, back, left, right, top, bottom. The mallet, it's struck with this hammer, mallet, on its 6 planes: front of the muzzle, butt plate, top of the breech and chamber, bottom of the trigger guard and frame, and both sides of the receiver and frame. If necessary, tests can be undertaken in order to attempt to duplicate conditions under which the firearm discharged. So that's the kind. They were pounding the shit out of this thing with a hammer and hit the with a mallet and hit the firearm's hammer from the back rather hard to get it to discharge. Now we're looking at a different test, fingerprints. This is interesting. They did a fingerprint test of things. They did a fingerprint test of the revolver, the ammunition box that the live round came out of, and the plastic tray inside of the ammunition box that the bullet came out. Now, there's a few things to remember as we go through here. Number 2 is the revolver, 11 is the box, and 12 is the tray in the box. And we have some fingerprints. Item 15 is Hannah Gutierrez, the armorer's fingerprints. Item 17 is Sarah Zachary, the prop master, Hannah's supervisor / immediate boss. And David Halls is number 19, his fingerprint. David Halls is Sarah's boss. Sarah is Hannah's boss. Or as we would say, something in like the corporate world, direct reports. So like Hannah would report directly to Sarah. Sarah would report directly to David. So boss, boss, boss. Their fingerprints are items 15, 17, and 19. And here they've given them alphabetical numbers. Hannah Gutierrez, she's person A. Sarah is person B. David Halls is person C. And Alex Ray, his middle name is Ray, R-A-E, like Faye Ray. I guess no, I wasn't spelling that. Like Ray Don Chong. It's a girl spelling of Ray. A, B, C, D. All right. Here's the test. What have they tested? They've tested item number 11. Item number 11 is the box with the live ammunition in it, where the round came from. They tested all 4 of the people, Hannah, Sarah, David, and Alec. And what they found from testing all the fingerprints, palm prints, impressions, and whatnot, they found that on the box was only Hannah Gutierrez Reed, the armorer's fingerprints. Hers were the only fingerprints on the box where the live ammunition came from. That's very interesting. That's very relevant. The next thing they look at in their fingerprint report, and this just talking about how they get the fingerprints and all this stuff, where more prints, same people, same designations, A, B, C, D. This is item 20. And what is item 20, you may ask? I have forgotten what item 20 is. So what page are we on here? We are on page 22. So item 20 is, okay, this is a box with tape from the prop truck. This may be the mystery cartridge box that showed up. I remember now reading it in the description. They don't say where this box 20, where this item 20, where this box came from, or what its relevance was, but I think it may be the box, because they said there was a box of ammunition that mysteriously showed up on her backpack that morning. So this may be that box, but that would make sense. Let's go back to page 22 here. So this box of ammunition with tape on it, this box with tape on it, they excluded Sarah, the prop master, and ALEC Baldwin. They did the fingerprints of everybody. They excluded those two, and it was inconclusive whether Hannah Gutierrez Reed, the armor, and David Halls, the overall safety manager guy, prop master, the guy that was in charge of all of the props and weapons, their fingerprints were on this box. So to me, if this is, I mean, I don't know if this is the case or not, but if this box is the mysterious box of ammunition that mysteriously showed up overnight and was on Hannah Gutierrez Reed duffel bag when they got there the next morning, the morning of the shooting, if it's that box, that may very well have answered who put that box there. Hannah touched it, so her fingerprints are likely on there. The inconclusive doesn't mean it's excluded. It just means they didn't have a great fingerprint sample. But David Halls, they found partial prints from him on that box. So if this is the box that mysteriously showed up, that nobody knew how it got there, it looks like David may have placed it there. If it's not, and I'm wrong, then he didn't, or there's no evidence he did. But he might be responsible for that magic box that just showed up on set on top of Hannah Gutierrez's duffel bag the morning of the shooting. I thought that was an interesting thing. More same fingerprint things, how they get things. Now they also did a DNA test. They also did a DNA test of people. A buccal sample, that's a mouth swab. They do, like, the mouth swab with the kind of, you do the COVID test, you jam the giant long Q-tip stick up your nose. This is a mouth swab for DNA, and they tested everybody. They took lots of samples from ALEC Baldwin, but yeah, so they took a swab from the revolver, and then from Hannah, Sarah, David, and ALEC. Hey, Crystal, welcome back. And here's the results of the DNA tests. The DNA test from item 2, which is the weapon, the gun. Whoa. Hey there. All right. Hang on here. Apparently I forgot to set the stream requirements to subscribers only mode. Let me back up real quick and do that. Dang it. Thank you for catching that, Farron. That was really super quick. And now I know that Farron's here. Hey, Farron, what's up? All righty. I am adjusting. Let me adjust this here. And customization, going to my custom. Yep, I had anyone could join. All right, there we go. You need to be a subscriber for 1 minute now because bots ruin everything. All right. Thank you for catching that, Farron. All right, get back to the screen here. All right. Wait, what? George Papard? George Papard is, wait, what the hell? I was going to say, what? What brought that up? I was like, what? Yeah, 1994. Cancer does stink, actually. Just lost a friend last week, as a matter of fact. Brendan Lesko, sexy time on the hill with men. Sometimes your super chats concern me. Thank you so much. And the Fed. Thanks for making me say that on YouTube. Thank you for the super chat. The set of the 8. Okay. All right. I need to read these things in order because I was like, why the hell is someone bringing up George Papard? He died like a bajillion years ago. But yeah, he was on the A-Team. The set of the A-Team TV show had used tens of thousands of blanks during its production, including tank rounds, and not a single incident occurred, as have so many other television shows and movies in the history of television and movies. That's how rare these things are. Yeah, Farron said 1 minute because Vices is easy. Yep, that's all it takes. That's all it takes to get into my chat is 1 minute. I'm easy. Ugh. Those are Korean bots. I bring the Russian bots. All right. Brandon, no. Ugh. Thank you, I guess. Did you tap the A-Team on the H Hill? No, we did not tap the A-Team on the H Hill in Seoul. Didn't tap anything or anyone's anything on H Hill in Seoul. All right. Let's get back to this test here, if we don't mind. The DNA test. They took the DNA swab from everybody. They took the DNA. They did a DNA swab on the handgun. And what they found was a person of interest, ALEC Baldwin. The results are 110,000 times more likely to be accurate if ALEC Baldwin and 2 unknown unrelated persons are contributors than if 3 unknown unrelated people are contributors. So basically, it's 110,000 times more likely that 3 people touched it than if 4 people touched it. That this was, ALEC Baldwin. And this is the likelihood ratio for ALEC Baldwin's DNA being on this weapon, which makes sense because it was in his fucking hand when it went off. He was the one that didn't pull the trigger, just was playing with the hammer, pulling it back, and then let it go and it went off, which we have just proven by 2 different people. That is utterly, absolutely impossible. And that's been also proven and corroborated by the FBI report that we're looking at now. Baldwin fucking lied. He pointed a gun at somebody. Clearly, he pointed a gun at somebody. He clearly, because the bullet went straight through the torso of the cinematographer and into the director. It doesn't work unless you're pointing them at someone. I can't go bang and shoot my camera. It doesn't work that way. Clearly, he was pointing the weapon at someone. Clearly, he wasn't just playing with the hammer and letting it go, because as you see, that does not fire the weapon. He didn't pull the trigger. Well, we've just been shown by the FBI and the 2 videos that it does not go off unless you pull the trigger. Yeah, let's not forget the fact that AB blamed Trump. All right. So again, Sarah Zachary, and this is the interesting thing. This was interesting to me anyway. Sarah Zachary's DNA, it's like it's like 5 times more likely. Okay, let's just cut to the chase. This is a ridiculous thing here. Basically, Baldwin, Zachary, and Hall's DNA were found on the firearm. Well, what about Hannah? Hannah's DNA, there was a possibility that was on there as well. So, and all 4 of these people, 3 of these people admitted to handling the gun that I recall. Hannah Gutierrez Reed, she essentially admitted that she loaded the weapon with the rounds, including the round that ALEC Baldwin fired through the cinematographer, Helena Hutchins. She admitted to that. She touched the gun. It makes sense. Her DNA is on there. She says she gave the gun to David Halls. So that makes sense that David Hall's DNA is on the weapon. David Hall said he gave the weapon to ALEC Baldwin, and then ALEC Baldwin shot 2 people with it and killed one of them. Alec Baldwin used to be so hot. Now he's just breaded and bitter. Yeah. So it makes sense that Alec Baldwin's DNA is on there. I don't recall Sarah Zachary ever saying she touched that weapon. I would have to double check, and maybe some of you can remember what specifically she testified to. But if my memory serves me correctly, she said she never touched that gun. If I remember correctly, I may be remembering incorrectly, and she did say that she touched it. But my memory is she said that she never touched it. If she didn't touch it, how did her DNA get on it? Just a question. Just some food for thought. Let's scan down. I don't think there's much left to get into in this report. Oh yeah, the drug test. They did a bunch of drug tests for amphetamines, barbiturates, benzodiazepines. I mean, just everything. Cannabinoids, cocaine, meth, methadone, fentanyl, acetylfentanyl, oxycodone, oxycontin, opiates, ethanol, booze, acetone. I mean, who's drinking acetone for God's sake? Isopropanol, methanol. They did all of these. They did all these tests, and basically they came back negative for. I believe this was on our deceased. Yeah, this was Helena Hutchins' medical report. No intoxicants, no drugs, nothing unusual in her system. She was clean. She was sober. She was just doing her job. And post-mortem examination. Cause of death, gunshot wound of chest. Yep. In one armpit, out the other armpit, and into the director. Manner of death, accident. Now, we had some people last time we talked about it say, well, how is the medical examiner able to say that that it was an accident? And, I said it doesn't really matter anyway, because the police will determine whether it was an accident or not. But here is a good explanation for that as we go down here. Toxicology testing of postmortem femoral blood was negative for alcohol and common drugs of abuse. She's clean. But the death, this is how the medical examiner can say that it was an accident in his report. And this is also explains why it doesn't really matter that they say it was an accident. Was because death was caused by a gunshot wound of the chest, period. Review of available law enforcement reports showed no compelling demonstration that the firearm was intentionally loaded with live ammunition on set. Based on all available information, including the absence of obvious intent to cause harm or death, the manner of death is best classified as an accident. So why they could say it's an accident is because they based that conclusion on the police reports. So the police reports said there's no apparent evidence of an intentional act to load this thing with a live round and shoot someone. And just relying on the police reports, the medical examiner is concluding that it's an accident. And that's why it doesn't really matter what the medical examiners conclude anyway, because it's based on what the police have told them. So that is the FBI report and the attached medical report. And I mean, you'd think that would be good enough. You'd think that'd be good enough for Alec to shut the fuck up and stop talking. To lawyer up, which I hope he has by this point. We know he's lawyered up because his lawyer's talking sometimes too. But the FBI report has flat out refuted every single detail he gave about the shooting. I didn't point it at them. I pointed it to the side. I was pulling back the trigger a little bit more, and then it just slipped and went off. We don't even need to discuss that anymore. It's not possible. It did not happen the way Alec Baldwin said it did. It cannot happen the way Alec Baldwin said it did. Physically, mechanically, and practically can't happen. So you'd think that's the end of it. But no. The first thing he does after the FBI releases this report is he goes and talks to Chris Cuomo, who, until he talked to Chris Cuomo, I wasn't aware that Chris Cuomo had a podcast. We reviewed the Chris Cuomo podcast last time, and we'll probably go back and watch it again. I hang out with a penguin in Korea. I love penguins. Penguins rock, Brendan. If there is a penguin, I'd like to hang out with one. People say I walk like a penguin, but that's beside the point. That's why I'm going back to the gym. I don't want to walk like a penguin anymore. Yeah, so he goes on Chris Cuomo's show and says the exact opposite of what the FBI report said. Now that we have the FBI report, we can go back and watch that Chris Cuomo deal, and you can see how even more it sounded psycho, because he was saying some psychotic, weird Alec Baldwin level weird shit. But then you can see it's even weirder than you thought, because you see what the FBI said. So that wasn't good enough for him. He had to go to Chris Cuomo's old boss, CNN, and give them a report just the other day. Read that super chat. I'm embarrassing myself. I probably am. Brendan, let's go. No, see, I didn't read it yet. It's still here. I haven't read it yet. Now I'm going to read the penguin deal. Okay. Penguins are getting taller. Soon they'll be larger than humans again. Oh yeah, like giant penguins. Giant penguins back in the day would rock. There. See, now I've read it. Now I see where the penguin detail came from. That's why super chats are important. I saw the penguin thing. I just saw it a little bit late. Now, see, you read that super chat. You're embarrassing. Now, if I actually read that super chat, which I didn't do, then I would really be embarrassing myself. But I didn't read it. So you're embarrassing yourself, Brendan. But hey, I'll forgive you, depending on your actions next week. All right. Let's bring up the latest Alec Baldwin stupidity. The CNN interview. This is a written interview, so we'll read through it. Share screen. We don't need live stream. Alec Baldwin. Yep. Again, this is such a fucking Alec Baldwin thing. He has never admit. I mean, I guess it would be wrong for him to come out in public and admit he did something wrong, because then he would be admitting he did something wrong, and that sets him up for liability. But he's very, very eager to say everybody else is doing something wrong, which, comes back in the end. Like, everybody did something wrong except for you, Alec. Everybody. When you were the last person to have that firearm, you were the last person to fuck with it, and you're certainly the person that was holding it when it magically went off and into and through one woman and into the shoulder of one man. Great. But he manages to make all this shit about him. There is a mother, a husband, a wife, a daughter dead. There's a woman dead, and there's another guy with a hole in his shoulder because of Alec. But Alec still has to make this shit all about him, which go away. I don't need anything. There we go. CNN Entertainment, 10 months after the Rust shooting, Alec Baldwin says he thinks about it every day. Do you believe Alec Baldwin thinks about this every day? I don't believe he thinks about this every day for a goddamn second. Immediately after this happened, he went off somewhere he took off somewhere to reflect or whatever. Yeah. I don't believe he thinks about this every day at all. He should be, especially now that the investigation's coming to a close and the prosecutor's going to start deciding what to do. He better goddamn well be thinking about it and talking to his lawyer about it. Well, Alec Baldwin says he doesn't believe he or anyone else will face criminal charges in the fatal shooting last year on the Rust movie set. Yeah, well, Did anything today change your mind about who is going to get charged? I'm still where I was last time we talked about that. And for the record, I'm going to say ALEC Baldwin has about a 60 to 70% chance of being charged with negligent manslaughter. If he is charged, I believe he's going to be found guilty. He was negligent. There was a homicide, negligent homicide. But I'm only 60 to 70% believing that he's going to be charged because he's ALEC Baldwin. It's a shitty thing to say, but it's probably not probably, but there's a chance that that could happen. I'm saying 60 to 70% ALEC Baldwin is charged. Hannah Gutierrez Reed, the armorer, I'm saying she will not be charged. From the beginning, and ALEC Baldwin is still trying to point her as being the primary one responsible. From the beginning, I was convinced that she was going to go down like a ton of bricks. But as these documents have become available, as things have been released, we can see that she was actually kind of trying hard to do her job, but they wouldn't let her. She kept insisting on the training, but they only gave her in her contract 8 days as armorer and the rest of the time as a prop person. And she told them a few days, 1 or 2 days before this shooting happened, my 8 days as armorer have expired. What are we going to do? And they told her, you're spending too much time. And you're at the end of the 8-day period. No more training. You're not to train ALEC Baldwin. You're not to do the daily trainings. You're to come up with some sort of inventory system. You need to spend more time with props. And she's saying, hey, if I spend more time with props, that's when accidents happen. That's when shit goes down. That's when we don't have this organized system of taking care of stuff. So she was basically prevented. But that does not mean she was not negligent. That doesn't mean she was not negligent. She could be negligent. She could be responsible for this. She could be criminally responsible for this. But the reason I think she's not going to be charged is because I think they're going to flip her and use her as their star witness to show that everybody above her was cutting corners, was not managing the budget, was preventing her from doing her job. It's like a drug dealer. The cops don't want the guy that's selling the dime bag to the hooker on the street corner. They want the suppliers. They want the dealers. They want the mules. They want the manufacturers. They don't want the dude on the street. And I think that's what we're looking at here. Hannah Gutierrez Reed, the armorer, is the lowest person on this particular pile of bodies. She's there at the bottom. So I think they're going to use her as a star witness to get other people. Perhaps Baldwin. Sarah, maybe. David Halls, probably yes. I'm thinking Halls is definitely going to be charged. ALEC, maybe. Sarah, maybe. Hannah, no. That's my call, unless I see something different, which I haven't seen yet. So we'll have to see how it turns out. But ALEC Baldwin, of course, making this all about him. It's a tragic episode, he says. It's taken years off his life. Well, it took every goddamn fucking year off of Helena Hutchins' life, didn't it, ALEC? Do you give a shit about that? You literally took every year off of her life. Prosecutors awaiting the investigative report from the Santa Fe Sheriff's Office will weigh evidence in the October. What are they waiting for? If you remember from our last stream we did on this, what they're waiting for is ALEC Baldwin to turn over his frickin' cell phone data. It's been subpoenaed. They're delaying. Why would you delay that? Shady shit going on there, ALEC. So that's why they haven't completed their investigation yet. They're waiting for him to turn over the shit they've told him to turn over. So anyway, they'll weigh the evidence in the October 2021 shooting on the film's Old West set outside Santa Fe, New Mexico, to determine whether to pursue charges. Baldwin and crew members were rehearsing a scene in a rustic church when a prop gun is still a gun, folks, obviously, because it had a live round in it and went pew pew. Rehearsing a scene with a prop gun in the actor's hand discharged. Yeah, it discharged because he pulled the trigger, killing cinematographer Helena Hutchins and wounding director Joel Souza. Investigations into the tragedy have focused on how a live round of ammunition ended up on a movie set. Yeah, whoever brought that on the set is going down for sure. For sure. In his interview with CNN, and as we said, if that box that had the ammo, if that's the one that has David Hall's partial print on it, bad news for him. In his interview with CNN, Baldwin placed responsibility for the tragedy on Hannah Gutierrez Reed, who served as the armorer and props assistant on the film, and assistant director David Halls, who handed him the gun. Now remember, David Halls is Hannah's boss. Through their respective attorneys, both Gutierrez Reed and Halls accused Baldwin of deflecting blame onto others. Yup. And this here is setting the scene for using Hannah as the star witness against whoever the prosecution wants to put down. Somebody put a live bullet in the gun who should have known better, Baldwin said. Or should we say this in a Baldwin voice? That was Gutierrez Reed's job. Her job was to look at the ammunition and put in the dummy round or the blank round, and there wasn't supposed to be any live rounds on set. Well, there wasn't supposed to be, but there was. And you, as the last person to have that gun in your hand, and you, as the person who was pointing the fucking gun at a human being, you should have checked it. And don't say you don't know how to check it or do this, because in your police interview, you did on the day of the shooting, without your lawyer present, you said you've been working with guns for 40 years. You told them that you know about weapons. You told them that you know how to tell the difference, but you walked them through how to tell the difference between the various types of ammunition. So you can't say you don't know what you were doing, because you did. There were two people who didn't do what they were supposed to do. You didn't do what you were supposed to do either, you fuckwit. You didn't check your weapon. You didn't look at it. You didn't check it. Simple. And you didn't do what you were supposed to do either. You didn't do the training. You refused the training. You refused the cross-draw training that you were offered. And the person who offered you the training was told not to do it by somebody else. So there you go. I'm not sitting there saying that I want them to, go to prison, or I want their lives to be hell. I don't want that, but I want everybody to know that those two people that are responsible for what happened, those are the two people that are responsible for what happened. Those are the two people that are responsible for what happened. Here's Alex saying, I'm not responsible for what happened. I had nothing to do with it. It was somebody else. It was these two, not me. According to an administrative complaint filed this month by the New Mexico's Environment Department, OSHA, against the production company, Gutierrez Reed told Halls to alert her when Baldwin arrived so she could perform a safety check on his firearm. The complaint goes on to say that the armorer left the church expecting Mr. Halls to notify her when Mr. Baldwin arrived. Instead, the complaint says Halls handed the revolver directly to Baldwin. Why didn't Gutierrez Reed check the bullet? Why didn't Halls obey her? Why didn't Halls obey her? Halls is her boss. You kind of lose that argument saying, why didn't the boss obey the employee? Why did he tell the crew it was a cold gun? And why didn't Alec Baldwin check to see if it was a cold gun? Baldwin also wondered aloud whether Seth Kenney, the movie's prop supplier, accidentally provided live bullets to the Rust set. See, here he is wondering out loud about everybody else. Well, Hannah, David did this. Seth, he did this. He's wondering about everything. And this is the example of deflection. He has not even said he regrets this. He has not even publicly said it's sad this happened. He hasn't expressed any regret or remorse that he just happened to be the unlucky fucker with a gun in his hand. An FBI report released last week showed investigators examined dozens of cartridges, including from the set and from a separate location in Albuquerque. Most of those consistent with live cartridges were not found on set. In January, Gutierrez-Reed sued the movie's gun and ammunition supplier, accusing PDQ Arm and Prop LLC and its founder, Seth Kennedy, of violations of trade practices, false and deceptive product labels, and false and material misrepresentations. In the suit, Gutierrez-Reed alleges Kenny sold her a cache of dummy ammunition with live rounds mixed in. If he did that, he's fucked. But also, Hannah, you kind of should have checked each and every one of them. Kenny's attorneys filed an answer last month denying any allegation and asking the court to dismiss the case. We agree with Mr. Baldwin and believe that Seth Kenny, as primary ammunition supplier, commingled live rounds with blank rounds in the ammunition provided to Rust. Jason Bowles, attorney for Gutierrez-Reed, said in a statement to CNN, "We have again asked that the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office and FBI test the live rounds for fingerprints and DNA to confirm where the live rounds came from. To date, they have not done so on this vital question, which must be answered to uncover the full truth of what happened." And the one thing to note, if you saw Sarah Zachary's interrogation, she threw some of the live rounds away. She said she was in a panic and didn't know what to do. So she threw live ammunition that was potentially involved in a shooting of someone on set in the garbage. See, now, after looking at the FBI report and the fingerprint analysis, whose fingerprints would have been on those bullets that Sarah, in a quote panic, threw into the garbage? That kind of makes you wonder, has it gone now from a panic and throwing them in the garbage to hiding or destroying evidence? That's some shady shit going on there, Sarah, and you've put yourself unnecessarily in the line of fire. So yeah, they want some more fingerprints to be done. To this date, they have not done so on this vital question, which must be answered to uncover the full truth of what happened. CNN has reached out to the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office for comment. "We disagree with Mr. Baldwin's attempts to deflect blame onto others. It is not for him to decide or to apportion blame," Bowles said. Bowles is Hannah Gutierrez-Reed's lawyer. In a statement, Hall's attorney said Baldwin is trying to shift blame away from himself. See, this is the problem. This right here is the problem you get into. First of all, shut the fuck up. Don't answer police questions without a lawyer. And if you're not answering police questions, shut the fuck up. And if press asks you for interviews, even your good buddy Chris Cuomo, shut the fuck up. That's the first three things you need to do. Shut the fuck up, and shut the fuck up. The fourth thing you need not to do is take a group. You're in a group of 5 people. Take the 5 closest people and go, number 1, it's her fault. Number 2, it's his fault. Number 3, it's her fault. Number 4, it's his fault. I'm number 5. I'm cool. Because what that suddenly does, that changes the dynamic. Instead of saying, I don't know what the fuck happened, that's what the police are going to find out. I don't know what happened. I just had this gun and it magically went off. I don't know. I don't know what was going on. I don't know what anybody was doing. I don't know what happened. He said, of the 5 of us, 1, 2, 3, and 4 are responsible. Well, the only thing that does is make 1, 2, 3, and 4 go, what the fuck? Hey, all 4 of us say it was ALEC Baldwin. That's all that does. That turns that scenario, instead of, hey, there's just 5 of us idiots that we don't know what happened, to a 4 against 1 scenario where, like, motherfucker, you're blaming us? Well, all 4 of them are blaming ALEC Baldwin now. That's all he's done, is to, unfortunately, to use the unfortunate metaphor, he's turned the gun on himself. He's got 4 people and their lawyers extraordinarily pissed off at him for trying to place the blame onto them. That's a really, really stupid thing to do. When you have such a small pool of people that are being investigated and say everyone else is doing it, that is the only thing that happens. Is they go, why are we fighting against each other? Let's go get ALEC. Dumbass. He's an idiot. He is not a very smart person. And if his lawyers aren't telling him to shut up, they're not very smart. And if he's ignoring his lawyers who are telling him to shut up, he's just a complete dumb fuck. So Baldwin is pointing the finger at others because the evidence is pointing at him, said Lisa Tarraco. Halls is not responsible. Everyone needs to stop. People are only pointing the finger at Halls because they don't want the responsibility of being wrong. Halls is a scapegoat. People need to look at the evidence. Baldwin has repeatedly said that he pulled back the gun's hammer as far as he could without cocking the gun, which we know is bullshit because, as you saw in the video, even 1/8 of an inch, even that far, will engage the safety mechanism. And if you pull it back less than 1/8 of an inch and let it go, ain't nothing going to happen. So yeah, he says he pulled back the gun's hammer as far as he could without cocking the gun and released the hammer, but did not pull the trigger. A newly released FBI forensic report said the weapon could not be fired during FBI testing of its normal functioning without pulling the trigger while the gun was cocked. The report noted the gun eventually malfunctioned during FBI testing after internal parts fractured, which caused the gun to go off in the cocked position without pulling the trigger. Luke Nikas, an attorney for the actor, told CNN on Sunday the FBI report is being misconstrued. Well, we just went through the FBI report. What part of that was misconstrued? Did we misconstrue any? I don't think so. I think it's pretty straightforward. When ALEC Baldwin showed up that tragic day for filming, he had not a single reason in the world to think there was a live bullet in that gun, in that church, or even on that property. Nikas told CNN in a subsequent interview on Thursday, it would be a huge miscarriage of justice to charge Baldwin. Well, let's look at that. When ALEC Baldwin showed up that tragic day for filming, he had not a single reason in the world to think that there was a live bullet in that gun. If you ever touch any weapon of any kind, any firearm of any kind, you start with the assumption that that weapon has a live round chambered and ready to kill something. That is the basic assumption you start with. You start with the assumption someone has handed you a live loaded weapon. And it's your responsibility to check to make sure it's not. That's it. There's no way around that. And the industry standards that we reviewed last time as part of the OSHA report said that it is incumbent upon each person to make sure that handles that weapon to make sure that it is clear or cold. And this is ridiculous to say he had no reason to think there was a live bullet in that. He had no reason to think there was not a live bullet in that weapon. That's the attitude, that's the mindset, that's the perspective you have to have from the beginning. You assume every weapon is loaded until you thoroughly prove it's not. That's just the end of that story. So that argument, I think personally, is just bullshit of the highest order of bullshittery. Here, fuck Alex. I don't want to see anyone suffer. Over the past 10 months, Baldwin says he has replayed the events that led up to the fatal shooting while waiting for Santa Fe County prosecutors to announce the results of their investigation. Baldwin says he took matters into his own hands. He went OJ and looked for the real killers. I hired a private investigator, he said. Based on what his private investigators reported back to him, Baldwin said he does not believe he will be criminally charged. There's the set. Baldwin said he believes that Gutierrez Reed and Halls wouldn't be criminally charged either. Well, he just said she should be. I'm pretty confident neither one of them should ever work in a film set again. Well, how about you, fuckwit? Do you think you should ever work in a film set again? Murderer, allegedly. Oh, that hurt to say allegedly. Ugh. I sincerely believe investigators are going to say that it was an accident. Yes, the investigators are going to say it's an accident. They're not going to say it was intentional. If they say it's intentional, then that becomes a intentional homicide or a first-degree intentional homicide or a first-degree murder. It becomes murder, not manslaughter at that point. You have to have the mens rea, the mental. I don't even know what the word is in English anymore. You have to actively make the mental minds. You have to have the mindset that you're going to kill someone. So that's what the intentional act is. Of course, the police are going to say it's an accident. Of course, it was an accident. But just because it's an accident, just because it's a tragic accident, that does not mean there is no criminal liability for it. That does not mean there is no civil liability for it. It just means it was an accident. And that's one thing that, that's what negligent homicide is. Negligent means not intended. Negligent means accidental. Accidental homicide. Homicide just means somebody died. It's an accidental death. But that's still a crime. Negligent homicide is still a crime, even though it's an accidental death. So someone needs to unfuck Alec Baldwin's understanding here. And he needs to understand what a really, really not good position he's in. It might just be that, the bullshittery of him and his lawyer saying this, but sorry. Accident does not mean you're not going down for it, pal. Baldwin added that he does not want to condemn Gutierrez Reed. He just keeps saying she should never work in film again. It was her fault. It was her responsibility. It sounds kind of like he wants to condemn her to me. I mean, maybe it's the Catholic in me. Oh yeah, Farron, you're here. We know you're a Catholic. And I wouldn't ask you to ever judge someone else, but does Baldwin seem like the most devout Catholic to you? Not to me as an outsider. So Baldwin's the good Catholic who's forgiving everybody, absolving everybody of their sins. Pope Baldwin. Ugh. Maybe it's the Catholic in me, Baldwin said. I have an impulse to say, I don't want to see anybody suffer. I don't want to sit there and say, go get her and condemn her. Catholics, sound off. I know, as a lapsed Mormon, every time I hear you, well, maybe it's because my Mormon beliefs that oh, fuck off. Don't bring your religion into it. Bass, going all history. Did Baldwin purchase indulgences? Yeah, unfortunately for Alec, I believe that the sale of indulgences went out of fashion quite a very long time ago. All right, before we get into the next stupid part of this, let's clear up these quick super chats here. Brendan Lesko, we're going to do them in order this time. Brendan Lesko, thank you so much again. I think about you every day, every goddamn second. You take my breath away. You had me at hello. You had me at hello. Also, penguins are better than humans. Thanks. Brendan Lesko, you sure do talk about male hookers a lot. And I haven't talked about a single male hooker. But I have talked about half cock, quarter cock, and full cock, and fingering triggers and things. But yeah, that's different. Thanks. That's next super chat. Bella Stella got us a super sticker. Oh, we need to. Oh, can I go back and see what the super sticker was? I missed the super sticker. I like looking at the super stickers. It's a fox that says "Good job." Well, thank you, Stella. Bella Stella. I appreciate that. Oh, that was very nice of you. Thank you so much. Dang. Dogs are snoring. Mojorison, thank you so much for the super chat. If someone can unfuck Baldwin, they can accomplish anything. Yeah, I'd probably have to agree with that. Ugh. Can you hear the dogs? I love my dogs. They make me laugh. All right. Got the dog snoring in the background there. And for those of you that ask, there are two English bulldogs, brother and sister, Yoda and Strawberry are their names. Filming on Rust shut down after the shooting. And this fucker, Baldwin says he went to great lengths to try to complete filming of the movie in an effort to provide potential proceeds to Hutchins' husband, Matthew Hutchins, and their son. Oh, intercourse yourself, Baldwin. Seriously. He just wanted the movie so that he could get paid. He was the freaking producer, and he said he waived all or part of his salary for whatever the crew wanted or some dumb shit like that. Yeah, I don't for a second believe he had any good motives for wanting to give the money to Hutchins to family. And we're going to get into that when we look at the lawsuit that Hutchins filed against Alec Baldwin and the shitty ass shit that went around that, Baldwin trying to lowball him and sweep it under the rug as quickly as possible. We'll get into that bullshit next time we hit the Baldwin trail. The Baldwin. All right, that's it. We're just going to start calling him Alec Baldwin. So Alec Baldwin now is saying he's filming on Rust. He wanted to do this for Hutchins' family and their son. The cinematographer's widow is suing the film's production company. Oh, yeah, they are. They're going to get paid. People talk about finishing the film to honor Helena, and I'm all for that. That's great. But more importantly, we wanted to put the money in the kid's pocket. Who talks like that? Really? Who talks like that? You killed his mother, for God's sake. Instead of saying, we want to make sure the kid has, we want to make sure her son, we want to make sure Helena's son, has a good life, has everything he needs, can go to a good college, can go do this. You say that. You don't say, we wanted to put the money in the kid's pocket. Who the fuck talks like that? Seriously. We want to put the money in the kid's pocket. Didn't the widower forgive Alec at the very beginning? Forgive Alec. We'll kind of go by. There was a major falling out between Alec and Helena Hutchins' husband. And guess whose fault it was? Yeah, it was all AB's. But I mean, serious. Alec is a wannabe gangster. That's why he talks like that. Seriously, I mean, for God's sake, he can't even. Does he know the kid's name? I wonder if you put a gun to his head and said, "What's the kid's name?" He couldn't tell you. I would bet that. Otherwise, he would have said, "Here, we want to put the money in little Billy's bank. We want to make sure he's taken care of." No. This oops. Caught myself. But y'all know what I was going to say. This idiot, apologies. This idiot, dick. Now we wanted to put the money in the kid's pocket. Baldwin told CNN, referring to Hutchins' son. Yeah, he can't even refer to the Hutchins' son other than this kid. Geez, this is what pissed me off. This next sentence is why we're reading this article and why my blood pressure is skyrocketing. Baldwin says he lost 5 jobs since the Rust shooting and would have quit the film business if it wasn't for the support of his wife, hilarious pseudo fake Spanish Baldwin, who is expecting their 7th child. Well, that pisses me off. Baldwin says he's lost 5 jobs since the Rust shooting. Well, you poor damn baby. Helena Hutchins lost her life. She lost every film she was ever going to be involved in for the rest of time. Her husband lost his wife. The kid lost his mother. And you claim you lost 5, which I don't believe anyway. This was 8 months ago. Who the hell gets 5 jobs in 8 months in the film industry? Nobody. Why does this have to be about him? What kind of narcissistic sociopath? What kind of Amber Heard do you have to be to make this shit about you? I wanted to complete the film. I wanted to put money into kids' pocket. I've lost 5 jobs. What kind of shit is that? I mean, that's just dirty, skanky, just filthy human being there. I got fired from another job yesterday, he said. There, I was all set to go to a movie, jump on a plane. I've been talking with these guys for months, and they told me yesterday, we don't want to do the film with you because of this. Well, good. I don't want to do a film with him either. I mean, good. I don't believe the story for a minute. Otherwise, I think he would have told us what the movie was or whatnot. I don't believe the story for a minute, but even if it's true, I understand it. I don't want to be on a movie set with Alec Baldwin. It's like the old meme that's going around. I stand behind Baldwin because that's the safest place to be. Ugh. Disgusting human being. Seriously. But again, we've already made it about him. He's lost 5 movies. I don't know if that's 5 movies plus yesterday or if it's 5 movies including yesterday. But not only does he want to be the hero and give money to put the money into kids' pocket, not only has he lost all these jobs, but he's also feared for his safety, since former President Donald Trump has said publicly that he believed the actor killed Hutchinson on purpose. And I don't believe he killed him on purpose, but yeah. Baldwin says that this type of stress has taken years off my life. Again, it took every year off of her life. There is just this torrent of people attacking me who don't know the facts. Well, apparently you don't know the facts either, mister. I just pulled it back a little bit, then pulled it back a little bit more, then pulled back a little bit more, and then let it go, and it went off, and I didn't pull the trigger. It sounds like you don't know what the facts are either. He said, crediting the support of his family with keeping him going. If I didn't have my wife, I don't know where I would be right now. If I didn't have her, I probably would have quit, retired, gone off, sold everything I owned, got a house in the middle of nowhere, and just, did find something else to do, sell real estate. So it's Hilaria's fault. It's hilarious fake Spanish woman's fault that he's still here. If she hadn't been there, he'd be gone now, apparently. So blame her for the fact that he's still around talking this kind of crap. Ugh, what a despicable human being. Seriously. Yeah. Please go away somewhere and sell real estate. If and when he does return to a movie or TV set, Baldwin says he won't work with real guns anymore. Filmmakers these days can employ digital effects to create realistic guns on screen, he said. That's Helene Hutchins in 2019, the picture. Baldwin also says there's not a day that goes by that he doesn't think about Hutchins and what happened that day. Everybody adored her as a person, Baldwin said, praising Hutchins' talent and character. That she died, that's the worst thing of all. Yeah, finally, something we can agree on, Alec. Somebody died, and it was avoidable. Yes. How was it avoidable? Before you pulled the fucking trigger. You were the last person to touch that gun. You're the one who's responsible for pointing it and pulling the trigger. That's how it was avoidable, Alec. You could have avoided this. Only you can prevent on-set murders, Alec. Screw you, Alec, by the way. It was so unnecessary. Yes, it was. Every day of my life, I think about that. Correction. The story has been edited to clarify the FBI report indicated that live rounds were examined from at least 2 locations, not just the set. In addition, the story has been revised to accurately reflect Seth Kenney's response to the allegations in the lawsuit brought by Hannah Gutierrez Reed. Well, that's the end of that. So coming straight out of the gate from the FBI report, he goes on Chris Cuomo's podcast and talks about how it's everybody else's fault. Then he goes on and does this CNN interview, talks about how it's everybody else's fault. He just wants to give the kid some money. He's lost some jobs. He thinks about it all the time. He just wanted to, me. Not a good look, Alec. Not a good look at all. Ugh. Now, we've gone over the 2-hour mark. So, I don't care if we end this now or if we go a little bit more. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to go back now and watch part of that interview he did with Chris Cuomo again. For those of you that were here earlier on and saw the 2 videos, there are the 3 videos showing how it could not possibly have happened the way Alec Baldwin said it did. Now that you've seen that actually demonstrated, and if you haven't, go back and watch it. I wanted to look at the interview again so you can see how ridiculously absurd the bullshit he's spewing to Chris Cuomo is. Dog snores. One more. Well, the dog woke up. So, all righty. We got a couple super chats here to clear. Brandon, let's go. Let's go, Brandon. See. Anyway, Brandon, let's go. $5. Thank you so much for the super chat. When is Trump affidavit out? Can you wait for it and do that lawyerly interpretation thing? There's the I assume you're talking about the unsealing of the Trump stuff. I looked at it. I'll look at it a little more closely. I liked some of the stuff. The way it was been released, there's a bunch of really uninteresting stuff that were released for free, and anything that has like potentially cool stuff in it is behind a paywall. Ooh, that was a good snore. I love my dogs. I just didn't have time to put them outside. Kitty Cat, thank you so much. AB is building a small army with all them kids. Yeah. Dogs. Jeez. They've gone into deep REM sleep now. They're just snoring away. All right. Well, we're at the end of part 2 of our 2-part show. So now we'll bump it into just the extra part 3 where we go back and look at the Chris Cuomo video with new eyes, as they say. But before we do that, I just wanted to give another quick shout out to all of the mods that are currently sticking around. Steph, so glad to have you here. Always a pleasure. Alan, hey, welcome. I saw you sneak in a little while ago. Good to have you here. I'm not sure who's still here and who's not. Oh, Crystal, yep, you're still here. Cool. Rose, are you still here? You've gone radios. Hey, yeah, you were here a while ago, so I'm assuming you're still here. So hey, we've got a good bank of our mods here. Give the mods some appreciation. They just do this shit out of the kindness of their heart, and they're awesome. They deserve all the kudos they can possibly get. And thanks to you guys, the chatting folks. As you weren't here, I have the best chat on YouTube by far. And if you guys weren't here, I really would have no reason to be here. And thanks for all of the likes. We've got 376 people here and 367 likes. And I know there's been some turnover. So, hey, everybody, everybody that's here that hasn't done so already, hit that like button. Do me a favor. Let's see how high we can get the likes going today. The goal is always 600, but that's we're just a little over halfway. So 600 might be unreasonable, but it might very well be reasonable if all of you haven't hit the like button yet. So if 300, I guess if 200 of you ish, if 225 of you have not hit the like button and you hit the like button, then we'll hit 600 and YouTube will go, yay, let's recommend him to people. And if you haven't subscribed, please do. We've got 23,576 subscribers. We are just 24 away from 23,600. And I got to push that up to like 24,000 soon, I hope. And then roll on to 25. And then we'll be a quarter of the way to the 100,000 subscriber mark. Not bad for 3 months doing this. It's good. You guys are pushing me forward pretty fast, and I deeply, deeply appreciate all of it. So again, hit that like button. We're up to 390 now. Great. 200 more gets us to the 600. And that's just a goal that I have for the whole thing. All righty. Well, we just lost 2 subscribers, so go to hell, whoever just did that. Now we need 26 subscribers to get to 23,600. All right. And again, while we launch into this, thanks to everyone that super subscribed, that super chatted and super stickered so far. If anything you want me to ask, anything you want to get out, just super chat it, and I'll be sure to get there. Otherwise, I'll try to monitor the chat as closely as possible on this Friday night, this no alcohol Friday night. That'll happen next Friday when y'all pay me lots of money to get really, really drunk, and we'll see who dries up first. Will I get in the ambulance first, or will your bank accounts run dry first? And I'll have a little announcement about that at the end. At the end of the show today, after we watch about 15 or 20 minutes of this ALEC Baldwin stuff. Here he is with the Chris Cuomo, who apparently has a podcast now, because he's not doing anything else other than getting suntan by the looks of it. The Chris Cuomo podcast. Flux is still here. Good. We like Flux to be here. All righty. Boop, boop, boo. There we go. Whoa, that was the exact wrong thing to do, wasn't it? What the hell? Well, that didn't work out. Somehow I magically closed the window because I was Captain Boomer, but I've got it right here. Thankfully, I just need to copy and paste. Open a new window. Boop, 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 boop. That's it. Okay. We'll just pick this up midstream because they don't do a lot of talking about relevant items in the early few minutes of the. God dang, dogs, chill out. I want to wake them up so they'll stop snoring. There we go.
I have one question that if you don't feel that you can clear it up now, you should at some point in the future. But then I want to talk to you about just processing and coping and enduring through this situation. The fact question is, in an earlier interview, you said, I didn't pull the trigger.
I didn't pull the trigger. Yeah, Lady Autumn Sky says Control T pulls up the last tab closed. Yeah, except I closed the entire window. That was the problem. So I had to copy and paste the address. Yeah, I closed the entire window. So here he's asking, you said you didn't pull the trigger. And we know from the FBI report and the 2 demonstrations that you cannot get that weapon to fire without pulling the trigger. Keep that fresh in your mind. Keep all that stuff from the FBI report and the 2 videos in mind during this.
And there's all this stage direction about the hammer, which is obviously a part of a revolver that people can look up for themselves, but that you pulled it back as the scene was directed for you to do. You say you never pulled the trigger, but the gun went off.
Right.
You do the ABC interview, and it was kind of left there. That will not make sense to people. If a bullet comes out of a gun, they say, well, then someone fired.
You're familiar with this did not come from me.
Ooh, this fucking comment here. Ooh. Remember, I know most of us saw it. Remember what you saw in the videos where if you pull that hammer back even 1/8 of an inch, you pass that quarter cock mark, and then the safety mechanism engages, where if you pull it back more than 1/8 of an inch and let it go, it doesn't fire. It cannot fire. It will not fire. You engage the default safety mode of that weapon. It's specifically not designed. It is literally specifically designed with this 3-stage cocking, the quarter, half, and full cock positions. This weapon is literally designed to prevent him from doing exactly what he is just about to talk about. This is insane. This is someone who is digging himself a huge fucking hole. This is literally impossible, and it was designed not to do this.
And it was kind of left there. That will not make sense to people. If a bullet comes out of a gun, they say, well, then someone fired.
You're familiar with this did not come from me. This came from the DA's office themselves. You're familiar with what fanning a gun is. Have you heard of that phrase, fanning a gun?
Yes, but explain
So
it.
if you pull the hammer back and you don't lock the hammer, if you pull the hammer back pretty far, in old Western movies, you'd see someone fan the hammer of the gun. The hammer didn't lock. You pulled it back to an extent where it would fire the bullet without you pulling the trigger.
Bullshit, Alec. Bullshit. It was literally designed not to do that. Again, let that That's his explanation. He pulled it back to that point and let it go. He pulled it back so far you didn't have to pull the trigger. That's not how that gun works, Alec. And they do the fanning. You go. Pew, 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 pew. It was designed not to do that. The only way you can fan that gun is to pull the trigger all the way in, and then you can fan it. But still, there's a lot of pressure on that. You have to get like a real like fast shooter, like speed shooter fanning thing going. You have to do a lot of modifications to that weapon. But even in its basest form, the way it is, the only way you can fan that weapon is if you have the trigger pulled. This pisses me off. This is him digging a fucking hole for himself, saying he pulled it back like he was fanning it, or he pulled it back so far that it would fire without pulling the trigger. What kind of fucking sense does that make to anybody? Jessica Channel says, guys, I don't know how I'm asking if I hold the trigger and fan. Yeah, if you pull the trigger all the way in, you can fan the hammer back into the chamber, but that takes a lot of work. It really, really does. It's not something that, he had to fan it. He had to pull the trigger, but he says he didn't fan it. He didn't pull the trigger. It was like he was fanning it. He pulled it back far enough that he didn't have to pull the trigger for it to go off. That is the dumbest fucking statement he could ever make. That literally can't happen. The FBI tried to make that happen repeatedly with that very gun, and it doesn't work. What an ass. What a lying sack of shit he is.
Without you locking the hammer. The man who's the principal safety officer on the set of the film declared that the gun was safe when he handed it to me. The person who was the principal safety officer of the film declared in front of the entire assemblage, this is a cold gun. Now,
and Alec didn't go, well, let me check. You're right. It is a cold gun. Or, holy fuck, you said this was a cold gun and here's a live ammunition. Here's a live round right here. You were trying to fucking kill me? You were trying to get me to kill somebody else? Those were his two options. He didn't choose either of them.
why did he say that?
Why didn't you
If he
check?
didn't know, if he hadn't checked.
You didn't check.
The point is, all of us were told that everything was cool and you can relax and we're working with a gun that's safe to rehearse with.
Now, did he say cold gun, or did he say everything is cool? You got a cold gun. Everybody can relax and we can just fuck around on set with the guns. I don't think he said that. He may have said cold gun. But I mean, this is an idiot. This is an idiot of a human being. This is a disgusting, despicable liar. And he can talk shit to Chris Cuomo. He can tell these lies to Chris Cuomo because Chris Cuomo has obviously never touched a gun in his life. I mean, do you know what fanning is? Well, yes, of course, I know what fanning is, but for those of the viewers who don't, why don't you tell us? That is the classic way of saying, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, but just tell us anyway.
But he explained it to me effectively, that that's exactly what can happen if you pull a hammer back and let it go. If there's a live round. See, there's only one question to ask here.
No, he did not do that, Alec. No, he did not. He did not show you that you can pull it back and it will go off. Because if he did, it would have gone off, or it would not have gone off.
Happen if you pull a hammer back and let it go. If there's a live round. See, there's only one question to ask here. Who put a live round in the gun?
Hannah Gutierrez
That's
Reed.
it. There is no other question to ask.
Yeah, there kind of is. Like, how did a live round get on the set? How did it get to a place where she could load it into the gun? Why didn't David Halls check it? And why didn't you, as the last person to have control and possession of that gun before you shot someone to death, didn't check it? There's lots of questions to ask.
Do you have any suspicion that this could have been a setup?
No. I think that in the beginning, for me, there was a discussion about what was likely. Everybody focused on what's likely. Someone was responsible for a horrible accident. And then as time went on, I began to entertain, because of the insistence of the people involved. And I don't want to get into this detail now, but of the insistence of certain people that something else was afoot here, I was open-minded to that for a couple of months.
Now, for those of you that remember watching this last time, this is where he really starts to go full Baldwin. Never go full Baldwin. He went full Baldwin with his answer and the answer to the next few questions.
And was willing to explore those possibilities for a couple of months. And then after exhausting that possibility, private investigators, things that were information we accessed, we come back to what is likely. What is likely is that somebody who was responsible for one situation or one line of responsibility, and the other person, it's like a tandem of the two people, one of them or both was negligent.
But you believe, for your own head, in processing how this became your life, you don't think anybody was trying to put how this.
Okay, and this is just so dumb. Look at how sunburned douche nozzle Cuomo is here. This is just an aside. Watch when he takes his finger away from his head, just touching his head. He leaves a big white mark there. I don't know. I just find it amusing that he's that sunburned.
Your life. You don't think anybody was trying to put you in a situation where something terrible was going to happen?
That requires so much. I mean, I am somebody who is perfectly comfortable with conspiracy theories.
So tell us a few. Tell us a few conspiracy theories that have nothing to do with you killing a woman, Alec. Tell us.
You know, you're talking to the guy who, when I had a show on MSNBC, I did a 2-hour, 4-part memorial that was going to air literally. It aired literally. It was scheduled to air on Friday, November 22nd, 2013, the 50th anniversary of Kennedy's murder. And I had a feeble and very old, but nonetheless lucid Mark Lane on the show. I had Jim Douglas, who wrote JFK and the Unspeakable. I had the guy whose last name is with an S, it's on the tip of my tongue, who wrote the New York Times bestseller about, he was a New York Times reporter about the Warren Commission. And I had Bobby Kennedy Jr. come on, and he was the first member of the Kennedy family to say on the air that his family believed the Zapruder film was doctored. I had a 2-hour, 4-part program all about the conspiracy aspects of JFK's assassination, and NBC killed it. My producer at MSNBC told me that.
What the fuck does this have to do with killing someone, Alec? He's just going totally full Baldwin right now. And this isn't even the most ridiculous conspiracy theory he talks about in the next couple of minutes.
Mothership across the street, NBC News, does not tolerate. They completely support that Oswald is the killer, and they refuse to disseminate any information that questions that theory. Oswald was the lone killer, and they don't want to hear one, and they canceled my show. And in its place, put some kind of Tom Brokaw, bowl of oatmeal with the boots in the reverse, in the stirrups, and JFK Jr. saluting, and just a very, sappy commemorative program.
But it led you to believe that there could be an alternative explanation.
Oh, when I was a kid, back in a time when journalism was probably still controlled by certain powers and influenced by certain powers, but nowhere near what it is now. I went to a 7-Eleven as a boy, and on a spinning rack of magazines.
See, I love you new people that haven't seen this video yet. With like. What? And Mads, it gets worse. Oh, it gets much worse than this. Yeah, we got a WTF going here. It's giving me Biden vibes. Yeah. What? Yeah, we get lots of what. It gets worse. It gets much, much worse than this.
Magazines was a journal about JFK's assassination. It could have been based on Robert Sam Anson's book, They've Killed the President. And in it, they had Oswald's autopsy photos. I mean, this was at a 7-Eleven in Massapequa, Long Island in 1960-something, when I was like 10 years old. And, I think sometimes, not always, you look at something and you say, It looks that way because it is that way. It's just very common sense.
And remember this whole weird JFK thing and comic books and Zapruder. This all happened when Chris said, "Do you think someone is trying to set you up?" That launched this insane diatribe.
To me, Kennedy's assassination is a very common sense thing. There's no way Oswald should squeezed off 3 shots and had 2 hits from that window. It's out of the question.
So back to you.
Anyway,
back to you for a second, and we'll go on. When you did the interview with ABC, we have a lot of friends in common and family. I was not in favor of you doing it because I thought it was too soon and you were going to get beat up for it. That happened to a certain extent. But I think the bigger concern, and what I want to know for this audience is, weren't your lawyers saying to you, even if this is ruled an accident and everybody who's in power acknowledges that ALEC Baldwin had no criminal responsibility for this tragic death, but you are a producer on the film and something can be an accident that is held as a liability of the producers, and you
it depends on what grade of producer you are. There are managerial producers who raise the money and spend the money and hire people, and there are creative producers who come in and the only authorities they have are over script casting. That's the category.
But you're getting sued just the same.
Well, the production's getting sued, and I'm one of the 5 producers that is named in the lawsuit. So, I mean, and we're all indemnified by an insurance policy. There's a lot I can say.
And see, that's the thing, and we'll get into that. This fits into some of the lawsuits that he's going through, like the lawsuit against a production company. He's saying that they are underwritten by insurers, and he says that there is a clause in that insurance that says any civil liability he has, the production company will indemnify him, will repay him for. So civilly speaking, there is a very, very, very good chance that if he ends up having to pay a dime, the insurance will cover it. So therefore, he doesn't give a shit. Whatever civil liability he has is most likely to be paid by an insurance company. He won't suffer one damn bit from civil liability.
Say about that in terms of who did what to try to craft settlements and things. I mean, there's a very complex web of stuff that was going on in the months after that. My impulse was, I mean, if you want to say something about me that's true, I'm not going to stop someone from doing that. You know what I mean? I'm not going to complain about that. Liar. If I earned it. Like this guy that said I punched him over a parking space in front of my building, and there's 6 cameras in front of my building, and all of them refuted everything he said. You know,
just kind of like the FBI report refuted everything you said, Alec.
So when we made that go away because he lied. The guy lied,
just like you.
Had it on film that he lied,
just like you.
But again, like people, much more than I was prepared to accept. People want money. They want money.
Well, and they want to go after you, especially the New York Post. But just to button this up, and then I want to move on. The idea is that you believe that as a producer, you're not going to have any liability because you're a different type of producer than other producers who are on the film?
I believe, no, that's a fact. I mean, there are people who are managerial producers. They're responsible for who gets hired, who doesn't get hired. You know, I mean, for example, the person who was the principal, what they call the armorer mentor, this guy, Seth Kenny, he completely endorsed her being hired as the armorer. You know, no one came to the production, even though this doesn't pertain to me and my responsibilities. Nobody came to the production and said, don't hire her. She was hired. She's in a union. There was no complaint. No one.
Actually, she's not in the union. That was one thing that she talked about in an interview. She's not a union member. She has taken like her first union course.
Came to the producers and said, the producers are blameless for that. I will say, even though I have my issues with them, the producers are not people who were warned not to hire her.
Do you think that the producers had reason to know that there were screwed up things happening on that set, that there could be danger?
That's a much more involved question that I don't want to get into now, again, because it speaks to some of the issues I'm going to address later on. But the bottom line is that there are people I spoke to who I admire and respect. And I said to them, did you think that this was an unsafe set? And they said, no. And I had no experience myself when I was there that it was an unsafe set ever until that moment, until that day that happened.
Except for the fact that a few days before the shooting, there were 2 accidental discharges in the same day, and 3 if you count a special effects thing that went wrong. So yeah, not buying a lot of that there, Alec.
When someone handed me a prop weapon and told me this is safe to use, they made that declaration. Now, what in the world of alternatives, what might have happened if he never said anything? But that's not the case. More in line with the way we live our lives right now, no one's following them around with a camera all day, are they?
Right.
No one's following the armorer or the first AD around with a camera all day long saying, well, what happened? What happened? What happened?
Well, arguably, the reason this has taken so long to reach a legal conclusion on the responsibility side, liability, civil litigation is something else. It's often more protracted. I think if it's not ALEC Baldwin involved, we get answers sooner.
Well, all of that remains to be seen. There's nothing. I mean, the fact that this has taken so long has been quite troublesome to me, and we're going to address that as well.
And again, the reason it's taking so long is he hasn't turned over all the information that the police have told him to turn over.
Once I mean, listen, if you make an announcement, this was made clear to me by my lawyer, if you make an announcement that you want them to step on the gas and hurry things up, that's only going to slow them down. DAs and prosecutors don't want to be told by people who are potentially the subject of their investigation what to do. I mean, my lawyer said to me, if you prod them, if you push them, if you go public and say, what the fuck is the problem here, then that's not going to help you at all. So I'm waiting and waiting and waiting. And then the announcement's going to come about who is or isn't going to be charged. I mean, I have a lot of opinions about that. But let me just say this, which is that we come down to a point where it's just like, it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter what you do. Now, this is something which was something that was to the delight of people who hate my guts politically. Trump went on TV and said he thinks I did it on purpose. I wouldn't rule it out, he said, if he did it on. His son made T-shirts that they sold on a website.
You called that surreal. How is it surreal? It's absolutely our reality. I can't believe you were surprised that he didn't take the opportunity.
I've been cured of that observation. You know, this was this wonderful opportunity for these people to, like in my case, you're not going to find any child pornography on my computer.
See, I told you it was going to get worse. I told you it was going to get worse than the JFK video. I told you it was going to get worse than the Zapruder film and shit. Yeah. It gets worse. It gets much worse than that statement right there. Just watch.
You know, this was this wonderful opportunity for these people to, like in my case, you're not going to find any child pornography on my computer. The things that they're hunting for, that they want, they're desperate for. You know, in the United States, obviously, sexual scandal overwhelms everything. They love that here. They love to condemn people for that and so forth. But what I realize is that, as I've said in the past, if George Bush's mother, if Barbara Bush fell through the ice on a pond.
This is how bad it gets. You all thought that CP on the computer was weird. Now we're talking about old lady Barbara Bush. Yeah.
That, as I've said in the past,
this is how bad it gets.
If George Bush's mother, if Barbara Bush fell through the ice on a pond, and I waded out into the pond and saved her life, they'd say I groped her sexually when I was pulling her out of the ice. I groped her. I squeezed her breasts while I was pulling her out of the ice pond.
What the fuck, Alec? Even Chris is like, oh God. That's where he went with this. People hate me. People want to see bad things happen to me. I don't have kiddie porn on my computer. And if I saved Barbara Bush's life, they'd say I groped her tits. Alec. Of all the examples you could use, Why did you go straight for that? Why did you go straight to minor oriented explicit videos and Barbara Bush's mammary glands? Why? Why? Alec Baldwin has issues.
Saved her life. They'd say I groped her sexually when I was pulling her out of the ice. I groped her. I squeezed her breasts while I was pulling her out of the ice pond.
First of all, thank you for that image.
Right.
Second, would that be before or after you pushed her through the ice in the pond?
Well, then you're more wise than I'll ever be. But my point is, it doesn't matter what you do. The ones that are out to get you are out to get you, and in this case, not even so much that kind of trash press. I mean, anything Murdoch and anything Post. I mean, who? I used to think that the Post was something that cops and firemen and doormen read for the sports.
Yeah. See, that's what he thinks. Cops, firemen, doormen, the dregs of society. That's he's the elite. He's part of the Illuminati. He's not one of those, these low life scum like cops and firemen and doormen.
Page, because let's face it, the Post has a pretty good sports page, and all the rest of that vomit that constitutes the Post. I thought, who reads this? But I was surprised to learn some of the people over the years who read the Post,
especially now that it's all digital. But look, all of this aside, and I do want to talk about it a little bit more in terms of how quickly you returned to your public life in terms of taking on tough issues and making yourself a target. But when I reached out at the time, I felt so horribly about what you and the family, and obviously the filmmaker who lost her life, that
Cuomo doesn't even know her damn name. You guys know her name. Chris Cuomo doesn't. He couldn't be fucking bothered to look it up.
Processing that pain, I felt so badly for you and for everybody involved. How hard has this been for you and Ilaria and the older kids?
What you hit on is the most important thing, and I'm not just saying this to be polite or what have you, or to dress this up a certain way. It is everyone that was there that day walked around confused. Confusion was what reigned that day, because what happened and what actually we learned happened was just not even in the realm of possibility.
Well, it kind of was, wasn't it? And I'm not going to inflict the next 45 minutes of this video on you. Those are the main points I wanted to hit. I mean, just ugh. How icky is that? God, what a disgusting human being. Oh, we got some serious dog snoring going on here. All right, let's pull up let's go through some super chats here, and then we'll kind of wind this bad boy down. Bass, thank you again. Something was afoot is totally a dig at Sarah. Sarah fired a blank in the general direction of her foot accidentally a couple of days before the real shooting. Thank you for that super chat. Spooky Spoon, are you going to cover Anne Heche? No. I feel bad for the people whose family was burned. Their house was burned down. I feel bad for them, and I hope they get some sort of insurance settlement out of it. Anne Heche, nah, sorry, I got nothing. I got nothing for her. Nothing. No. See, I come from a different place on that. My brother was killed in a drunk driving accident. I got zero fucking tolerance at all for anyone who does drugs, drinks, whatever, and gets behind the wheel of a car. I got no sympathy for them. Nothing. I'm empty inside. So Anne Heche gets coked up or whatever the hell she had in her system, drives her car through somebody's house and sets the house on fire. Yeah, I feel bad for the homeowners. That sucks. They need to be compensated. But for her, no. not a bit of sympathy. So yeah, I got nothing to say about that. Sorry, unfortunately, other than you brought it on yourself. End of ad. Thank you so much. A producer is a producer, no matter what imaginary title you use. But that's true. But he is also correct in that. I mean, that's one thing he is correct. And we'll get to those documents the next time we talk about ALEC Baldwin and his situation. He was limited to a financial producer role. He didn't have any of the decisions on hiring and firing on. It was more of budgetary things, but that may be the liability there, is if somehow he wasn't managing the budget properly, and so therefore couldn't afford the armorer. But yeah, his role as a producer were contractually defined, so that may give him a big out. And even if it doesn't give him an out, as he said, he's got insurance, so it's not going to hurt him in the end. He meant to say you will find CP on his PC. Yeah, when you're not finding him squeezing Babs. God damn. Supercars on the bridge. Cole Roberts, why would Baldwin pick Cuomo to interview him? Because they're New York buds. They're friends from New York. Flux. Oh, Lord, it's the Bush boobs again. Yeah. He went straight to Babs titties again because that's how he rolls. I mean, ick. Gross. Jillian, thank you so much for the super chat. Jada Pinkett Smith should have an episode of The Red Table with Amber Heard, Meghan Markle, and Alec Baldwin, where the four of them compete to see who is the most put upon and the biggest victim. Wouldn't that be a sight to watch? God, got Godzilla's going here on the floor. Yeah, that would be a sight to see. It's a race to the bottom with those four. Dogs, shut up. They're on one tonight. They must have had a fun day while I was gone and got tired. There's like some serious like nods going on. Kitty cat. So Legal Vices sounds like pissed off weed eaters in your background. Yeah, just the old doggos. Well, here we are at the 3-hour mark of my 2-hour show. I really need to stop doing this. I need sleep at night. And I had to start at 10 o'clock tonight because I had some stuff to do outside and I barely made it home. But starting next week, I'm going to be going at 9 p.m. my time, which is 8 a.m. Eastern and 1 p.m. London time. Kind of move it forward a little bit, just so I get to sleep at night. Oh gosh, I thank everybody that was here today. Coming up next is the weekend. Following the weekend, Monday, we'll be back with another Maritime Monday. Oh, Kitty Cat was talking about the cars being the weed eaters. Oh, they're talking about the dogs, like they're like growling, got the munchies going on back there or something. Yeah, but no, Monday will be a Maritime Monday. I haven't decided what case we're going to look at, but one thing we will be looking at is there was a $42 million luxury liner that sank off the coast of Italy a couple of days ago. We'll look at, there's a little bit of sinking video there to watch, a couple minutes. We'll also be talking about another major disaster. I'll probably decide on Sunday what we'll be watching. And Tuesday will be a sit-down interview with Amber Heard and Johnny Depp related. It'll be Camille Vasquez and Ben Chu, who are Johnny Depp's lawyers. They sit down and have an interview with the president of the Beverly Hills Bar Association, where they talk for a good hour about the case, and then we'll get some updates on that as well. We'll watch that interview, comment on it, and update on some JD and AH news. Wednesday, Thursday, not sure what we're gonna do yet. There is some more Uvalde news. Trying to get enough to put a show together. There's a couple other topics we can discuss. But next Friday is the third Fuck It Friday stream. We'll be doing the third Fuck It Friday stream next Friday, which is the 2nd, I believe. Yes, the 2nd of September. And for those of you that know, you know. And for those of you that don't know, what we do on Fuck It Friday, anything goes. We just screw around and have fun, but it's also a joint show. Ordinarily, we just throw out wild news stories and talk about crap. But next Friday, the next Fuck It Friday, will be with Fair and Balanced. We'll be doing a joint Fuck It Friday unexplained stream where we'll be talking about ghosts and supernatural stuff and Bigfoot and government conspiracies and whatnot, and doing our usual watch related videos and get way sidetracked. But the Fuck It Friday part of that is it's a grift stream. I grift hard to separate you from your money on that day so we don't have to do it on other days. And the idea is $100 gets you a shot of alcoholic beverage in me and a super chat or super comment or whatnot. I'll put together my usual collection of rot gut spirits. But the one thing I wanted to say, the new thing I'm going to do for Fuck It Fridays is, and I'll show you the documents to prove what I will do starting with this next Fuck It Friday stream. Whatever the revenue for the stream is, I will get one bottle of a whiskey of my choosing that is at least 25% of whatever comes in for the Fuck It Friday stream. And we'll drink that as an option on the next Fuck It Friday stream. So essentially, if we bring in, $1,000, then that's at least a $250 bottle of whiskey that we'll be consuming on the next Fuck It Friday. If we go crazy and get to $2,000, then it'll be a $500 bottle of whiskey. And if you're all feeling like ridiculously stupid generous, and we somehow get a $4,000 stream, then we're drinking a $1,000 bottle of whiskey at the next stream. Inner Peace says, of your choosing, lol, yes, of my choosing. If I'm buying a $1,000 bottle of whiskey, it's going to be a good $1,000 bottle of whiskey. So just saying 25% of the next stream will be dedicated to a single bottle of whiskey. That will be one of the options. And of course, as always, the bottles that are provided, as we talked about last time, will be from the proceeds of the Fuck It Friday stream, but one of the bottles will be at 25% of the value. So again, if we do 1,000, it's a $250 bottle. If we do 4,000, it's a $1,000 bottle of whiskey we'll be consuming. That's what we'll go. Oh, is there a bad $1,000 bottle of whiskey? That's what Kestrel 42 asks. The sad answer to that question is yes. There are some fantastic $100 bottles of whiskey, and there are some shit bottles of $1,000 whiskey. Like, not retail price, but for example, Blanton's bourbon is a $39, $49 retail thing that can sell for $500, $600, $700, and it just ain't worth that anywhere. Pappy Van Winkle sells for, I think it's $89 or $90 a bottle. They sell here in Korea on the black market for $8,000. $8,000 for a $90 bottle of whiskey. Ain't nothing about that that's worth $8,000. Yeah, but I mean, there's some good stuff. So we'll see what happens. Well, Kitty Cat said you'd use that $1,000 to pay bills in a joint. Well, three-fourths of it will go to that. The 25% of whatever we make in September will go into the October booze fund. So, hey, that'll be fun. We'll just kind of see what we come up with. That's all. It's just yet another gimmick to suck in more money on that night. And again, that's the one day a month we just grift hard. But while we're grifting hard and you get in your little bidding wars and your drinking wars, and I mean, think, Brandon, what were we at last time? Like I was 6 shots behind before the damn show started. there was already shots stacked up before I got on air that people had super chatted before I turned the damn computer on. So yeah, it's kind of fun. Again, I just do it that one day of the month, so I don't have to do it the other days. It's fun. Yeah, don't start early. No, we start at 10 o'clock p.m. here, which is 9 o'clock Eastern time in the States, because Farron, she has to wake up Friday morning. So that'll be next Friday, the big major grift stream with Farron Balanced doing our unexplained. All righty, well, I'll get off of here and I'll let y'all have your super weekend. Mods, thank you all for being here. You guys did a fantastic job as always. Chat, I will go to my grave saying you're the best chat around. Appreciate the support with the super chats, the super stickers, and just your presence, your comments, and the respect you have for me and each other, especially. There's been very, very few issues and very few a-holes in chat that try to derail the stream, but you guys do wonderful self-policing and weeding out the douche nozzles. Thank you so much for the super chats, for the super stickers. And on your way out the door, please do me a big favor and hit that like button if you haven't already done it. Where are we sitting right now? 280 concurrent viewers, 455 likes. If any of you haven't hit that button, do it. Let's see if we can get it up to 500. What the hell? And if you haven't subscribed, please do. All right. Claps and hearts around for everybody. Love you all. Love you, mods. Love you, chat. Love myself. Love my dogs. And with that, go have a good weekend. Enjoy your Friday. If you're in my time zone, go to sleep, enjoy your drinks, whatever. We'll be back on Monday with Maritime Monday. Until then, enjoy your legal vices. Bye.